All right. What is happening, everybody? So, time for live show number 3. Let everybody start chiming in here in a minute, I'm sure. So, in this live show, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the new car and, just what motivated me to pick it up, what's the reasoning behind it, and really, what are the goals for the new car moving forward? Hang on, let me get this thing straightened out. Scat 426, what is up, man? How you doing? All right, let me try to get situated here, guys. Honestly, this isn't much different for me putting together, as I almost said, filming, putting together a normal video. Yeah, basically, it's just me hanging out with you guys. So, nothing's ever scripted. I get a couple of questions every once in a while. Where do I get the ideas for the show, stuff like that? It basically comes from you guys, friends of mine. Also, just conversations that I have with them. So, yes, Scat 426, new car. Yes, there's a new car. All right, so here's the thing. As some of you guys know, transmission blew up in the white car, and it was driver error. I mean, I'm not going to say it had anything to do with the power limitations of the HP70. Had absolutely nothing to do with the trans tune. That was a bit on me. And again, kind of to run you through the scenario, what happened is I had done the burnout in the car. I was running a set of Mickey Thompson ET Street SS's on the drag pack on the 17-inch wheels. And those things, they're a little bit long in the tooth, and the thing felt like it was on snow. I mean, it just coming out of the burnout, just didn't feel like it was hooking up too well. Lined the car up, got everything staged, rolled into the throttle hard, and for some reason, had my hand sitting right next to the shifter, rolled into the throttle hard, the car bit, and then broke the tires loose. I rocked forward, hand rocked forward, bumped the shifter. When I pulled my hand up, shifter came back into drive. Problem is, it was sitting at about 6,400 RPM at that point, and boom! Yeah, so anyway, got that all taken care of, and yeah, it got me to thinking. It was almost more of an economic thing, but the reality of the situation was, I've been looking at something a little bit different anyway. And I felt like I had taken the 392 about as far as I could take it realistically. I mean, sure, I could have put in one of my camshafts, which it's kind of weird. I'm the guy that designed, big time. Fast man, oh boy, boom. Yeah, let me tell you something. It was big time, boom. But the funny thing is, though, is that I was able to get it home. It locked out in 5th gear. So, yeah. Anyway, getting back to it, decided I was going to start looking in a little bit different direction. And some options were coming up. You got the new 1320 coming up. Great option. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of warming up to that car just a little bit, but it's really only based on the electronics that are offered. Dr. Hemi, hey, I love it. Yeah, actually, but no, it was one of these situations where I liked the car, liked the electronics, but I didn't feel like it was enough of a departure from, it wasn't enough departure away from a base scat pack. I mean, electronics aside, plenty of guys that were out there doing just fine, myself included, foot braking those cars. Excuse me. So I started looking at a possibility for a wide body scat pack. Now, in looking at the wide body scat pack, the cool thing about the wide body scat pack that really intrigued me initially was just the presence of the wide body. When you see that car in person, there is nothing in print or on a video screen that is going to show you really the impact that car will have when you see one in the flesh, so to speak. They're just that dynamic looking of a car, and it opens up some opportunities for doing some open track racing. You've got the option to run bigger, stickier tires, always a good thing. And those bigger, stickier tires are going to do well on a drag strip. But I started looking at the cost of that, and I wasn't entirely enthralled with the idea of dropping that kind of money on another 392 car. So as luck would have it, I've been kind of scoping around a little bit, and the criteria was pretty tight. I mean, it was one of these situations where it had to be the exact car that I was looking for. And lo and behold, it showed up. The car that I was looking for was, I was looking for a as low mileage as I could find Hellcat. And well, I'm now the proud owner of a Redline Red 2015 Hellcat. So if you've been on my Instagram page, you have seen pictures of it. You've seen some time slips already. It's already been to the drag strip. Haven't had the opportunity to do any, filming of it or anything like that just yet. Just kind of getting to know the new car. And so far, I got to say it's been a lot of fun. Bone stock on the drag pack last night. Oh, wait a minute. Fastman's got a question. Do the wide body scats have the same size axles as the Hellcat? Yes. As a matter of fact, they do. The Hellcat and the 392 cars all have the same basic geometry, basic layout, and they do use the same half shafts. So, and that's, by the way, one of the reasons why a lot of the Hellcat guys will move to the 309 rear gear is because it's a super simple plug and play upgrade. If you want to call it that, the 309 offers up a little bit more of a peppy driving experience with those cars, but it's not super far and away from the stock gear. Let's see. Hang on just a second here. Derek says, that's awesome. Can't wait to see your spin and what the Hellcat can do. Well, wait no farther because I will let you know. So the first time I took the car down the drag strip, I had the drag pack on, no weight reduction, anything like that. And I launched it like a little biatch, but it's first pass ever. Car went 11,093 and 124.29 miles per hour. That was its very first pass. Hopefully, I don't know why it's showing it backwards. Something. Wait, hang on. I don't know how to fix that. Anyway, take my word for it. So 11,093 to 124.29. That was the very first pass the car ever made. And I launched it like a little bitch too, because that's with a 178 60 foot, babying it out of the hole. Its next pass, a little bit better, went at 1094 at 124.42. So the very last pass the car made, this is the first time I took it to the drag strip. And again, it's funny. Guys will ask me to drive their cars for them, and I drive them like I'm getting a number for them, right? But I drive my own car and I drive it like that. I don't know. It's kind of funny. Anyway, went 1090 at 125 and change. That was the last pass for that night. And that was 2 weeks ago. So I decided I'd take it back to the drag strip this past weekend. Met up with some friends of mine out there. Shout out to Rob, Chris, Aaron, Steve. Met some new guys, David, Warren. Looking forward to running with you guys soon too. But to give you guys an example of how she did, let's see, ran a string of 1070s, 1077 at 126 and a 1077 at 126. Both of them 126.1, 126.06. So let me scroll through these real quick. Fast man, good DA? Yeah, it was a very good DA. At the end of the night, DA was sitting right at 350. If memory serves me correctly. So, yeah, DA was great. And, the drag pack hooked up just fine. Again, wasn't really bonsai launching it until the very last pass, but it didn't really seem to matter. The car got out of the hole just fine and got down the track. But getting back to the question about whether the Hellcats and the Scats have the same, rear pumpkin setup, axle setup, they do. I can tell you this, in most conditions, the 309 may get you a little bit better in the eighth, but the jury's still a little bit out as far as how much better it'll do in the quarter, just because there's an extra gear change. I've heard conflicting results. The Demon comes with the same 309 that comes in the Scat Packs, albeit with a little bit different carrier. It's a 41 spline as opposed to the 36 or 39 spline that comes in the Scats and the Hellcats. So that'll give you an idea. But excuse me, Conoco 4, what do you think about the 392s being in the Ram 1500s? I think it's a long time coming, to be honest with you. I mean, if you think about it, the Chevrolets had the 6.2 forever. And I mean, there's really nothing to compare it with the Ford. I guess you can mix in the EcoBoost as their higher power option over the 5-liter for towing. But, you know, I don't see why it's not optioned. It would actually bridge a pretty strong gap in terms of not only performance, but you know, towing, off-road capabilities, you know, Power Wagon platform, I believe has it, but I think that might be on a 2500 platform. But, you know, still it would be a fun option nonetheless. And it's an option that I'm really surprised that they haven't exercised here. Let's see, Derek D, would you ever do a video on initial HP tuner setup as their instructions are vague on the site on how to perform the stock read file? Like it could help a lot of people out. You know what? That's not a problem at all. I mean, I've done that a million times, but just not on video. Yeah, I can definitely do that. Walk you through a read file, anything like that. But anything to do with HP tuners, I can help you out with. So, yeah, I can walk you through that. That'd be easy to do. Just did a read file on my car, as a matter of fact. So, but you know, the fun thing about the Hellcat is, you know, compared to the 392, you know, I'll stand by what I've said before, where the car, just normal driving it around, it doesn't feel that much different than the 392. In fact, there's a couple of spots where the 392 has an advantage over the Hellcat. If you guys remember me talking about going out and sniping after Hellcats on the street, the 392 will absolutely house a Hellcat on a 0 to 60 run. I mean, it's just on the street, unless you're running an ET Street SS on the Hellcat, and even at that, you probably have to start off in second gear. Yeah, I haven't quite replicated my 0 to 60s just yet with the Hellcat, but a lot more torque, a lot more power to try to modulate. And again, you know, with the guys that do go to the 309 rear gear for the Hellcats, I think some of those guys are just launching them in second gear on the street and having a little bit more luck with it. But I don't know. My tires seem to go up in smoke. So I don't know. It's a good running car. FX Bomb Dropper, Hellcat Redeye. Yeah, I know. So I looked into it. Check it out. Here's the problem with the Redeye. You know, it's one of these situations where... Sorry, allergies are kicking my ass today. The Hellcat Redeye is expensive, to say the least. And what I mean by expensive is when I went and I priced one out, the one that I priced was basically just a regular body, non-wide body, base model Redeye with 309 gear and a rear seat delete. And I think it came out to like $79,000. And I got to tell you guys something. I've got a real hard time justifying $79,000 for that car. Now, granted, it's a gorgeous car. It does have the Demon engine, however, does not have the Demon transmission, and it doesn't have the ability to work with race gas at the press of a button. And I get that that is part of the separation between Redeye and Demon. But man, I don't know. When you're paying that kind of money, you kind of need to have that technology transition over with it. Yeah, I get that the Demon is going to have a little bit of a different, drag setup and a few other things. But what got me to wondering a little bit about that Redeye and just how much of a value, if you want to call it that, you're getting with that car. The first thing is that it doesn't come with the HP 95, but it does have the power capability of the Demon. So I figured that was a little bit of an issue. And the second thing was, if it comes with the power of the Redeye, the power of the Demon, basically, but doesn't have the transmission to go along with it and doesn't have the technology to go along with it, you're better off picking up a Hellcat and modifying it lightly. And in terms of power numbers, it'll be sitting right on top of that Redeye, no problem. Hondo, hey BM, what's up, man? What's up, Hondo? How you doing? Hassan, Sergeant Mc. That 6.1 with mods is a problem. Man, I gotta tell you something. The 6.1, dude, man, look, the 6.1 does not get the respect it deserves. And I don't want to, at the risk of coming off and sounding like like a purist when it comes to this stuff, or the historian, but my background is working with engines, especially at the museum where I was the engine specialist. So I'm going to be more prone to falling into that cadence. But man, I like the 6.1. I like it because it is uncomplicated. And realistically, look, if I were to have a 6.1 and I had a pretty healthy budget, you do a little bit of head work to the cylinder, you do some work to the cylinder heads, a decent camshaft, nothing too crazy, have the intake manifold extrude honed, and put a little bit bigger throttle body on it, let her rip. I wouldn't try to set the world on fire with one, but man, I'll tell you what, in terms of simplicity, in terms of just having fun, especially with the manual transmission cars, that's a real hard package to pass up if you're looking to have a real good time with a Mopar in general, but don't want to drop big coin on a Hellcat or a brand new car. Don't sell it short, man. I really like that engine a lot. So, getting back to why did I pick the car that I picked? So I was specifically looking for and this is kind of funny too, I was specifically looking for a Redline red base model Hellcat. And basically, as long as it served that criteria with low mileage, I would be interested in it. And literally the next day, after getting my car back, there it was, popped up on the computer screen, a Redline red base model Hellcat with 5,600 miles on it. Could not pass up the deal, made the switch, and at this stage of the game, I couldn't be happier. So, in terms of mods and what I'm going to do with it, nothing yet. The car still has warranty on it, and it's already well on its way to be running deep into the 10s, basically bone stock on a drag pack. I'm going to try to see if I can sneak that thing into the 1050s, basically stock on a drag pack, and then I'll make my decision as far as what I'm going to do with it after that. But as it sits right now, it's stock. Stock air intake, stock air filter, stock catalytic converters, everything. It's a stock car. I mean, it is what it is. So it's in terms of modifications, none. And in looking at it and knowing the tune, and especially knowing the transmission tune for the Hellcats, there is some ground to be made up on any ET on a Hellcat. Their shift points are typically pretty low to begin with. So yeah, kicking up the shift points a little bit alone is enough to pick up a couple of mile an hour on the big end, and typically about a tenth or two in the quarter mile. So we'll see. You never know what's going to happen. Let's see. Oh boy, it looks like I answered that question. He asked, what will be the first mod for the Hellcat, and how far am I looking to go with it? So how far am I looking to go with it? Not super far. I'm keeping the same mindset that I had with the 392 with my Hellcat, mainly because I don't mind playing in the shallow end anymore, and I like trying to get more from less. It's a bit more of a challenge than just throwing a bunch of power at it, throwing some different type of fuel at it, and letting her eat. I really like to try to stretch the limits of what a stock or stock-ish setup will do. Maybe a little bit of tuning, but that little bit of tuning is going to be focused on the transmission and really not on the engine too much. And I'll even take that a step farther. It may not even get a cat delete or even metal substrate cats for a while, at least until it's out of warranty, which is about I say that's probably bullshit. I'll probably end up putting a cat delete on it once I get to a point where I want to put a tune on it. And that's mainly to be able to dial back the catalytic converter overtemp protection. That's another means to an end of just making a little bit more power on the big end. But at that point, I got to start playing with fueling and things like that. Or I won't be. Alex over at Pipes Performance Tunes will be taking care of that for me, because this is one of those situations where, yeah, I know this stuff, but he knows it. He teaches it. So there's a big difference there. So, but that's basically it. Just some transmission tuning for now. Let's see. Smoke 05, love the videos. BM, have you lightened up on the new 426 yet? LOL, me too. I'm liking it. I'm glad they did it. Hoping for an NA version also. Okay, so here's the thing. Have I lightened up on it? Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with the engine itself. I mean, it's not the engine's fault how it was marketed. You know, I guess, yes, I'm looking at it from a little bit different point of view, but realistically, that platform, I really wish they would have spent a little bit more time on that aluminum block option or availability for either the Redeye, the Hellcat, or the Demon. Only because, and I say that first, not to discount the NA, guys. It's just that they came out with it as a boosted platform. So let's talk about it as a boosted platform first. I would have liked to seen that for the Demon though. And that to me, it doesn't have to be a 426 for the Demon. Just, you know, an all aluminum 6.2 or maybe an all aluminum 6.4 for boost for the Demon. I think that would have been great. But, you know, for the NA guys, again, we're kind of left out in the cold. I find it a little bit curious that the 1320 wouldn't come with an aluminum block 392. It doesn't have to be 426, but okay, how about the 426? And I understand completely. Look, there's developmental costs and testing that needs to go into that engine before it can be released for consumption. But for a production car, all that has to be taken a step farther with emissions testing, long-term durability testing. All of that comes into play, and that does take time. Here's the thing. Here's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that engine sets the stage for future power plants, say within the next 2 to 3 years. I would like to see a Scat Pack 1320 with a all aluminum 392 or all aluminum 426. I would like to see a Redeye or a Hellcat, or maybe if they, you know, re-release the Demon at some point, if that would be available to be, released with that aluminum block. That's what I'm hoping that's there for. The only thing that makes me a little bit skeptical about that is that they've had an aluminum 426 for a while. It's been in the drag pack cars. So it's been there. They just haven't translated that into production. Might have more to do with cost, but then again, these cars cost enough as it is. There should be some money left in the kitty. Oh, shit. Time out. We got some technical difficulties. One moment, please. Hold on. Wait a minute. Mount fell off. It's like my damn transmission. Hang on. Shit. Time out. That was pretty funny. That was pretty good. All right. So hopefully that answered the question. All right. Johnny Powers, Scat is the best buy for the money. Just wish we could have a rear gear choice. Yeah, you and me both, man. I've been whining about that for a while. Jimmy says, just change the heads on the 6.1 to the Apache heads, change the crank rods, pistons, cam, stroke 426. Change the dampener and the 4.2 liter Kenny Bell supercharger and the 6.1 rocks. Yeah, it does. And that's a whole lot of time and money being spent on a 6.1 to get it to that point. But you can do it. I'm not saying you can't be done. And if you've got the resources to go after that, I mean, you can build yourself a 800-900 horsepower pretty easily. Well, it's not easy. You can build it provided you're following the rules, the Hemi rules. Just remember that Hellcat platform will get there, and it's a whole lot less of a headache. Let's see. Oh, damn it. Hang on. Black on white Shelly. The newer 5.7 Hemis with the 8-speed outrun the 6.1 Hemi. In practice, they're damn close, I'll tell you that. But you would expect it. I mean, it's an 8-speed, and that 5.7 is underrated, and I'll stand by that because I've seen both of them on the dyno. They're very close. So for you guys that have the 5.7 with the 8-speed and the guys with the 6.1 and the automatic or what have you, here's the breakdown of how they make power. The 5.7 and the 6.1 make almost the exact same horsepower to the rear wheels. I've seen this over and over again on the dyno. 6.1 will edge it out usually by about 10 or 15 horsepower to the rear wheels. But on a Mustang dyno, guys, 10 or 15 horsepower is more or less within, I mean, you wouldn't feel the difference there. The 6.1 will make about, it'll make a little bit better torque through the mid-range. Sometimes the 5.7 will be a little bit better on the hit. But again, that 8-speed automatic can make up for that just because of torque multiplication. So that's typically how they play out on the dyno. Let's see. To you. What's up, buddy? I'm late. Yeah, I did pull the trigger on the Hellcat. Be on the lookout. I'm going to try to get some videos of that here pretty soon. I may drag the phone out there and show you guys a picture of her sitting in the garage right now. And for you old school guys, you'll get a kick out of how it's sitting in the garage. You'll know what I'm talking about. Let's see. Oh, hang on. Sorry, I can't read. I got a glare over here. Super Run 357 has a Scat Challenger Hellcat next after this. Let's see. Appreciate you, man. Saying he learned a lot with my journey with the 392. So did I, and I loved every minute of it. And he says he's looking to get the thing deep down to the 11s. He's in the 12s for now. Listen, you can absolutely do that. As a matter of fact, you know, it's actually pretty easy to put one of the 392 cars deep into the 11s. I mean, you can have a car that's running 1180s in pretty much muggy, hot conditions. You know, if you're running a drag pack on it, if you're running like something like a Nitto Tri-5, just the same. I mean, you can easily put one of those cars into the 11s and have a car that's a lot of fun, has really good throttle response too. But you're going to need a tune, definitely going to need a ported intake, and a little bit larger throttle body. Hondo says, got a tune for my new Hemi, 2019 Bighorn. I'll tell you what, I just got through tuning, excuse me. This is driving me nuts. Just got through tuning my brother-in-law's truck. Picked up 3/10 in the quarter mile with his. Super Run 357. Can we still ask 392 questions? I hope you do. I need you to. That's still my baby. Listen, I will never stop being the biggest fan and supporter of the 392. I believe from the bottom of my heart that it is hands down the best NA American muscle car engine platform. And I know people talk about, they're made out of glass and this and that. Listen, if you play within the rules with a 392, you can have a car that will absolutely embarrass other brands' modded efforts, so to speak. And you guys know this, man. I've been doing that with my 392 for a long time. So 2018 Mustang GT. So I'm not going to ever say that there is a reason to not buy one of the 392 cars. I just happen to be in a position and be in a situation where I could get into the exact car that I was looking for. It's one of those weird things where I literally thought, okay, if I can find a base model 2015, 2016 with super low miles, I'll have to pull the trigger, and it's got to be Redline red. And then the car pops up. How do you not? I mean, it's like, wow. So, yeah, but no, I welcome all 392 questions. Demonology. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Ah, man, from the bottom of my heart. $10. Man, I appreciate that. The question is, I'll be using a mix of Torco 108 unleaded race gas tomorrow and 93 octane. What should I mix it to? I would like to see you mix that. Well, first of all, we're going to run this car, I'm guessing, at, let's say, half a tank. If you were to start off with no fuel in the tank, I'd like for your car to be about, if we're talking about 9 gallons, I'd like to see about 5.5 gallons to 6 gallons of the 108 to your 93. I'm a big fan of the 108, and I think that with the 108 and the 93 mix, that should get you where you need to be. But depending on the DA, if it's going to be a low DA, I would probably, you know what? I would probably go a little bit more aggressive than that. I would on a 9-gallon mix, 10-gallon mix, I would probably say on a low DA day, 6 to 3, I think would be the right choice for you. 6 to 3 or 7 to 2 would be where you need to be. I'd like to see the actual octane somewhere around 105, 104, somewhere in that range. But if you're mixing it and it's going to be a low DA day, that mix should get you where you need to be. But obviously that 108 is a really good fuel, and I can start getting into specific gravities of different fuels and how that works out. Different race fuels have more ethanol content than others do, and I prefer in colder temperatures to try to run a fuel with as little ethanol as possible, mainly because as the fuel pumps are running through, it heats up the fuel. You can possibly get some condensation in the tank, but typically it won't be too much. But it's just, how scientific and how nitpicky do you want to get? But that would be my mix for the day. Where are you going to be running at, by the way? Samuel Jackson, when do you think we'll see the engine in a production car? I would like to think that, so here, let me preface that question by saying this. My understanding of the current platform is it's going to run to 2022. And at that point, the Mopar was talking about, at one point, the rumor was the Giulia platform. That proved to be too small. The Ghibli platform looks like it was the next best choice, but now FCA is saying that they're going to take the current LX platform and just modify it. So that's a good thing in that it reduces some production cost, and you keep the same engine bay. Everything still bolts in the same way if you run the same platform. I would probably say that somewhere between 2021, maybe 2020, but I'd be pushing it. I'd say 2021, 2022 is when you would see a possible version of that aluminum block in something. Hondo, got a picture of Hellcat? Actually, here in a minute, I may drag the phone out to the garage. This battery's about to keel over, but I'll show you a picture of it. I'll film it sitting in the garage here in just a little bit. Scat sending a shout out. Scat426 sending a shout out to Demonology. What's up? Let's see. Super Run 357. Thoughts on lower springs Mopar Eibach for Challengers? Still good for drag strip? Looking to improve handling. Actually, there's nothing wrong at all with the Eibach springs or the Mopar springs. As far as are they good for the drag strip, they're fine. Unless you are putting a set of shocks and springs on the car that's overly stiff, they'll be fine. But they're still progressive rate spring. They're going to squat just fine. Don't worry about them at the drag strip. The only thing I will caution you on, though, is when you do install those springs, please make sure that you get the car realigned afterwards. It's going to be real important to realign it because you'll be running significantly more camber. If you take those lower control arms and bring them up, you are going to be adjusting that camber. So definitely get it realigned after you're done. If you do that, won't have any problems. If you don't do that, then yeah, you're going to run into some problems on the drag strip. And what happens is your tire, instead of being flat, it's going to be kicked up a little bit. You're going to lose that contact patch on the inside. You'll be bringing the weight of the vehicle off of the outside a little bit when you increase the camber on that vehicle. So get it realigned. You'll be great. Trust me. I've run so many lowered cars, it's not even funny, and didn't even notice a difference. In fact, well, this is a solid rear axle, but my 94 Cobra, the one with the 427 and the T-trim, that's how old of a setup that was. That was a 9-second car, and it was running on Ford F springs, if you can believe that. So, let's see. Beef Lad K, congrats on my new purchase. Came in a little late. What happened to the SRT? Well, SRT, nothing really happened to it of its own fault. It's really on me as far as the transmission letting go, but I just ran into a phenomenal deal on a 2015 Redline red Hellcat, so had to pull the trigger. It's the car that I always wanted. I mean, the cool thing about that car, the first time I saw one, it was a press car. It was the the cover girl for all the brochures or anything online. It was always that Redline red Hellcat. I always thought it was such a good looking car. Let's see. Smoking 05, an aluminum block 392 and a 1320 would be awesome. If you're asking me, it's not only awesome, it would be appropriate. I mean, if you're going to do it in that car. And that's the thing. If you're going to do it in that car to where spending the extra money, you know where your money's been spent. Come on, Mopar, man. Quit trying to, I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, I think it'd be a great idea. Super Run 357, thank you so very much. I appreciate it very much. Super Run made a donation. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Demonology, they make a 108 unleaded race gas. No. Well, Sunoco's most potent is a 104. I think check out VP Racing. I think they've got one that's up around, I don't know. God, now you got me thinking about it. I don't know. For a second there, I guess they don't. They're running an unleaded. I'd say just run MS-109. MS-109, I mean, you can't go wrong with that fuel. And that's good for, I mean, it's a good catch-all fuel. I like it because it's mostly readily available. If you can't get the Sunoco 104, the stations will typically have the MS-109, at least the tracks will. And the car seems to respond really well to it. I do, for the Demon though, I do like the MS-109 over the Sunoco 104 just because it's significantly less ethanol in that fuel. Let's see, what do we got? Oh, yeah, I guess you guys are checking in on, yeah, my phone fell off. Earthquake, yeah, I know. You can believe that. Thing's been sitting on up here for like ever, and then I'm right in the middle of filming and it decides to, go bombs away on me. Let's see. Symphonics, do you think Chevy goes away from the pushride single cam engines? No way they're going away from it. If they decided to make a move away from that, they would have to change, because they would have to change every vehicle that they put a V8 into to accommodate whatever overhead cam engine that they would have, which means they would have to do a sweeping platform change in terms of packaging. Now, the trucks wouldn't really suffer too much from it, but the Corvette certainly would. The Camaro may need a little bit just because of how the engine compartment is configured, but I've got to assume that they have absolutely made their bed and are happy to sleep in the cam-in block configuration. What I wish that Chevrolet would do is to move away from the direct injection only and move to a system as Ford did with the dual fuel system, where you've got port fuel injection and direct injection. Because guys, if you've ever seen the intake valves on any of the LT platform vehicles, within about 20, thousand miles or so, they start to get these carbon dingleberries around the intake valve, and it's a mess. And it happens so quickly. It's one of those, damn sure, it happens so quickly. I mean, within 15,000 miles, there's already a significant buildup of carbon on that intake valve. The reasons for it doing that are like a topic for another video, but it's suffice it to say it's significant. And that problem, especially for car guys, the car guys that are buying those vehicles, that's actually one of the reasons why they're shying away a little bit from that Camaro. It's definitely helping Mustang sales. Let's see. Hondo, is it possible to install SRT pages on Ram truck? Great question. I don't know, but I'm sure Z Automotive can answer that. I will say this. When my Ram 1500 had the Uconnect update, the first screen that pops up, SRT pages. I got real happy about that for a minute, but I never could re-access it. But I also didn't have a taser or anything like that on there. I'll tell you what, guys, bear with me for just 1 second. I got to fix something. Hang on. All right, I'm back. I guess I'm way back. Hang on. All right. Let's see. Is the ported MMX intake really worth the coin? Natalie Dayton wants to know that. I'm going to tell you no, and it pains me to say that. The reason why I'm going to say no is because, well, let me just get into this real quick. Just so happens I have props. Again, get a lot of questions on intake manifolds. MMX does a real good job on the runners themselves. They have got the runners fairly well figured out, except there's a key point that they miss. And there's a, on the long side radius on the back side over here, and it's typically right around in here where this piece actually meets up with this piece. There's a piece here. You may be able to see a seam here, and you'll see the seam for the bottom. This thing's made out of a few different pieces. So at any rate, up in the runner, there are some areas where you need to smooth out, and you really have to get up in there to do it. There are some ridges you need to remove to improve flow. The second, and I may have to argue one of the bigger points, I don't think you can see this too well. I don't have a light floating around over here, but at any rate, it's this throat area right back in here, and especially on the bottom side. That's the area where they need to open it up a little bit more. I have seen quite a few of those MMX intake manifolds, and the more I've started working on these intake manifolds myself, I've found that the only real gains that you gain with that intake is when you can actually open that throat up enough to where a larger throttle body can flow into the plenum with as little restriction as possible, and to lower the KPA enough to where it's not just super deep into KPA at partial throttle at like 4,000 RPM. You want to be able to be deep in KPA when you're at about 55 or 5,800 RPM. That's typically where resonance will come into play, and you'll start to lose KPA at that point. And that's just KPA, by the way, kilopascals. You can call it PSI. You can call it vacuum. But what it is just a measure of the vacuum in relation to atmospheric pressure in the intake manifold itself. If a KPA of 100 is considered it's basically ambient. It's just like you're breathing right now, or anything that is ambient, because you're basing that number off of the ambient barometric pressure. Anyway, long story short, you want that to be as close to ambient as possible at higher RPMs, but especially around 5,500 to 6,000 RPM. That's a real important place for these 392s, especially in the quarter mile. It's trying to get that KPA to get up as best you can. Anyway, are they worth it? This is a long-winded way of saying, yeah, they're worth it. They're better than stock, but to really get a good ported intake manifold, you're going to have to do a little bit more work to it. And it's a lot like buying a camshaft. I mean, you can get an off-the-shelf piece that works pretty good, or you can get a custom grind that works really well. Think of it along those terms. But just make sure you get a throttle body that'll work well with it. Let's see, 6.4 Hemi power. Why are the cams in the Gen 3s not as choppy as other platforms? That is a fantastic question, and I would love to answer it. So the reason why they're not as choppy is there's two reasons. One, it's a variable cam, and that variable cam has a much wider lobe separation angle. That wider lobe separation angle does you a couple of favors in that it promotes building torque down low. It's one of the reasons why the third gen, especially the later third gens, make so much more torque than the earlier counterparts. It's not just because it's got a longer intake runner length, but it's because of that cam profile. The earlier Gen 3s had a more traditional looking cam profile, and as such, you can throw more timing at them than you can on the later Gen 3s with the variable cam. But as the engine was developed, they started figuring out that you could have a cam with a lot of lift, but not a lot of duration, split the lobe separation out, and then just rock the cam around to, make it make power wherever you wanted to, so to speak. And that's where it comes from. A wide LSA just doesn't have inherently as much lope. Although the Hellcat in my 392 actually had a little bit of a lope from the factory. It was kind of funny, but yeah, that's the reason why they just have a wider lobe separation angle. Let's see. Michael Corleone sending a shout out to my good friend Demonology, the Soul Snatcher, all over these United States. And you are right, Demonology. Torco is the only unleaded at 108. Demonology saying Texas Motorplex against the import shootout. I cannot wait to see how many of those overseas, so to speak, souls get snatched. That's going to be awesome. And like I was saying, those boys, so when you're talking about the import guys, they make all of their power on the big end, either the big end of the track or in the way upper RPM range on those engines. It's going to be fun watching the updates, by the way, because they're going to have to do a lot of work to catch that car. And believe me when I tell you, I've had cars that were strong on the big end, but weak on the launch, or at least, up to half track. And it's easy to force a guy to make a mistake, especially with a manual transmission. If he's trying to row you down, yeah, there's going to be a lot of souls getting snatched. Might be a lot of transmissions getting snapped up too. Call them almost said tranny snapper. We're not just cut. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. It's going to be a good deal. Let's see. Hayden L, 11 seconds, 6B, 392 NA with mods you preach about? Question mark. Yeah, absolutely. Have you seen it? And why don't we see many people running 11s with the 6-speed? I'll tell you what, Hayden, that's one of the best questions that I've answered in a long time. And so let me just put it to you like this. There's several reasons why you don't see that many. First of all, yes, you can absolutely run 11s with a 6-speed with the same modifications that I have on the 392. Or I should say had on the 392. It's going to take a bias ply tire and a drag pack to get it done, but you can absolutely do it. The problem is a lot of guys, and you're asking why you don't see that many of them, it's because the 8-speed is just that good. And the car is heavy. And I've always been of the opinion that after about 3,600 pounds, 3,700 pounds, the car or truck in some cases needs to have an automatic transmission because you need the torque multiplication down low to get the thing moving. That's where the cam in the 392 and the intake manifold in the 392 and the transmission, the torque converter, everything in that car works incredibly well as an engineered package. Excuse me. When you look at it from that standpoint, it's almost like the cam profile and the torque production of that engine is just perfectly suited to that stock converter. It's not to say that it's not a lot of fun and that you can't get performance out of it with a 6-speed, but man, it's a lot of weight to try to modulate with a clutch. You need to be in a situation where you can launch that thing at about 6,000 RPM. A bias ply is about the only way to do it. A lot of those guys just aren't willing to do that with their cars. So only because they get a little bit, I'm not going to say intimidated, but it's so easy to do it with an 8-speed that the guys that are doing a lot of drag racing, they're just going with the 8-speed, but it can absolutely be done with that 6-speed. And by the way, the 6-speed 392 cars are actually a lot of fun to drive. And anybody says that they don't handle, yeah, there's a few of them that run at a place called Motorsports Ranch here in Houston. And yeah, they regularly give cars that people say they shouldn't mess with. Yeah, they regularly give those guys all they can handle and then some. So let's see. Let me scroll back down here. Sam and Jackson, are there suspension components you can swap in for weight savings? Yeah, of course there are. I mean, you could go coilovers all the way around, save a little bit of weight there. You could remove your front sway bar, old school trick up front, or at least unhook it for better weight transfer, or remove it entirely for drag racing. Although I would never suggest you do that. Not on a car that weighs as much as ours do. It's in terms of suspension components, there's other places to pick up a weight savings. Demonology is got a promo code, I believe, for the Bogart wheels. Demonology, check in. If you got promo codes, this is the time to throw them out there. But there are other ways to go about saving weight than digging into the suspension. That's a situation where, man, let me tell you something. You can spend a ton of money and pull a significant amount of weight out of the car and not pick up anything in ET. That's just the way that it works, especially when you're only saving, let's say you save 50 pounds out of the car in total. You won't, but let's say you did. It's still not going to be much of a difference in terms of actual weight savings from a percentage point of view. Let's see. Trackpack RT. What's going on, me Mason? What's going on, Trackpack? Any thoughts on, he asked, any thoughts on the Scat Pack Stage 3 cylinder heads for the 5.7 or aftermarket Edelbrock cylinder heads? Much possibility in the way of gains if paired with a cam for the 5.7. Yeah, they're actually not bad. I would say in lieu of going with those heads, I would look up Hooper's head, Sean Hooper. He is the instructor at the School of Automotive Machinists on how to port cylinder heads. He's got a fantastic CNC program for those heads. He is also going to replace the seats in those heads as well, because the earlier cylinder heads, kind of a bad situation with the valve seats on those. But that being said, yeah, there are some really good programs out there right now for those heads. You pair them up with a camshaft, and you can get, in some cases, right at or almost right on top of later Gen 3 392 Hemi numbers out of them. So, in terms of how much power can you make, I know that on a Mustang dyno with a fairly, one of my cams, but not too aggressive, it was making 385-ish to the rear wheels. And that's right on par with one of the earlier 392 cars with the 6-speed manual. So, Definitely a good way to go. And they're fun too, and they sound great, especially when you spin them to about 7,200. Just make sure if you do that, you're going to want to definitely have some work done to the intake manifold, definitely larger throttle body, and put a set of stand key tie bars and collars on that thing in the process. You'll thank me for that later. 392 Scat Pack Attack asks, is it worth upgrading the 392 Hemi push rods to forged? Well, they don't have forged push rods, but I'll finish reading the question. I'm starting to get the dreaded Hemi tick. All right, well, if you're getting the dreaded Hemi tick, get that thing into the shop now. You want to make sure that it's not a lifter actually letting go as opposed to just one of the bolts backing off on that intake manifold. The push rod you're talking about would be the 0.080 push rods that are readily available through Modern Muscle or HHP. In fact, give Josh a call over at HHP. He can put you right where you need to be with those push rods. But yeah, if you do have your lifters replaced, if you don't have a tune on the car, the newer lifters are good. If you have a tune and you can eliminate MDS, I didn't see if you've got an older, well, all of them are MDS anyway. So I would highly suggest if you've got a tune, just kill MDS on that thing altogether, put a set of Hellcats in it. If not, the new lifters are good. Just make sure in that case, better push rods, always a good thing. And if you're going with an aftermarket camshaft, I don't care if it says NSR on the cam, put different push rods in it, please. Let's see. Forged 392 Scat Pack Attack. Greg Fitch, I have a stock 2017 Scott Hellcat with 6-speed. Could close ratio gears first through fourth improve quarter mile? Older muscle cars had close ratio gear sets. Yes, they did. And I'm not sure that there are any that are available. Let me think about this for a minute. What's the name of the company? It's escaping me right now. There are, you know what? I don't think G-Force makes gear sets for our 6-speeds. Actually, no, beginning to answer the question, no, not really. And the reason for that is the way that the Hellcat engine makes power. It is unbelievably strong from 4,000 RPM to 6,000 RPM in terms of being efficient and making torque. You want to take advantage of that torque, especially considering you got a heavy vehicle. And you've already got a set of here's another idea, you got 370 gears in the car. You can kind of get away with this a little bit. Go with a set of 392 gears. That might get you a little bit more of what you're looking for, and it would be a whole lot less expensive than going with a different transmission different work to the transmission. Now, budgeting isn't a problem. Then obviously that way would be better because you wouldn't sacrifice any fuel economy driving down the road. But there's really not that big of a difference between a 370 and a 392. So take that for what it's worth. But it might be a good idea. Let's see. Excessive. What's up, my brother? Hey, if you guys haven't seen Excessive's new video, get on that immediately. It's X-Cessive, C-E-S-I-V, on YouTube. Just do a search on that. He's got a hysterical new video you guys have got to check out. It is funny as hell, too. Good job on that, my friend. My dude is pulling out props on y'all. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Excessive talking about getting ready to run the quarter in the morning. Finally. Yeah, finally. What do you think about that? Imports versus domestic shootout with demonology should be interesting. I'll say it should be damn interesting. So, guys, listen. Excessive has got a Bravo package Hellcat Charger. It is full weight street trim interior. Nothing's been gutted. Nothing's been messed with. It is, it's go to the grocery store, family truckster ready to go across the country. when he puts that drag pack on that car and puts it down the quarter mile, I'm going to rub on my crystal ball real quick, and I'm going to say that thing's going to bust off about a 961 or a 959 at about a $144. So be on the lookout for that. Check him out. If you haven't subscribed to him, get on that because he has got a monster of a charger. I've done a little bit of work to that car, both mechanically and in a trans tune. It's a Pikes Performance Bravo package, Pikes Performance Tunes tune, and that thing is a beast. Check it out. One of the fastest stock blower Hellcats in the country right now. I know, we need to meet up at Mason's place. I mean, mi casa, su casa, brother. You bring the beer, I got the venue. SRT Jimmy, best mod you can make to your 392 is to trade it in for a Hellcat. Well, it's tough to argue that. You know, if you're going to stay naturally aspirated and you're going to stay with the 392 platform, you know, what would be the best mod for it? You got to get it tuned. You absolutely have to get it tuned because that will completely change the complexion of that car. And if after that it's not enough, and you've gone with a cat delete, and you've gone with the ported intake, and you've gone with a ported throttle body, you put the Hellcat airbox on it with a Hellcat filter, if it's not good enough for you at that point on a tire or on a drag pack, find you a Hellcat. And I will leave it at that. Natalie says, thank you. Well, thank you for asking. Appreciate you checking in with us. To Brima Sinju, hope I'm saying that right. For my Dakota build, I want to go 5.9 Magnum. The thing is that making it hard to make a decision is the power and the torque limit because I want to get it to the 600 horsepower, 500 foot-pounds of torque range. I'll tell you what, you know, there's nothing wrong with a 5.9. Please don't get wrapped up in power numbers, though. You know, as much as we all like to sit around and talk about how much power something makes and all of that, unless you're building a straight drag race vehicle, you know, a contraption solely for the purpose of going down a drag strip, outright power is not near as important as engineering a fun factor, so to speak, into that platform. So, you know, ported heads, camshaft, intake, everything else involved with it. Hit that thing with about 150 shot of nitrous and it will be a riot, believe me. And as far as how much horsepower, heads cam intake will be gross rating at the flywheel on a 5.9 somewhere around 400-ish. Hit it with about a $125, $150 of nitrous will put you right where you need to be, and the instant torque hit. Build that transmission and make sure you got a strong rear end. Suspension that thing as best you can first before you do anything. It'll put you right where you want to be. Steven Russo, you fix that transmission yet? Yeah, I'll say it is. Yeah, no, it's fixed and it's gone. So yeah, the new owner of that car is gonna have a lot of fun with it. I can't wait to see it around on the road. It'll always have a special place in my heart, although I do have the special parts taken off of it. Let's see. Grab a gear. I like that. That's a good one. So, crazy question. If I wanted to stuff a Elephant in my 16 Scat Pack 6-speed car, what driveline upgrades would you recommend? Well, your 6-speed, you're going to need a clutch for sure, and you'll only find out how much power that thing will handle when it blows sky high. But there's been plenty of Hellcats with a 60/60. I'm sorry, Hellcats too, but plenty of Vipers with a 60/60 that don't have any problem making, you know, plenty of power and not having issues with that transmission. But the clutch, for one, will be an issue. So upgrade that clutch, and aside from that, obviously, you know, you're going to want to go with a much more robust drive shaft, and depending on the tire that you're running, I don't know how long that rear end will last with a 6-speed, but if you're running it on a drag strip on a bias ply tire, that tire is going to absorb a lot of that shock. So that'd be about it. Clutch. See what happens. 6.4 Hemi power. Thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that, man. Every bit helps, especially I'll take it. $1.99. I love it. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. Let's see. Hang on a second. Let's see. Got a little stuff going on. So, Symphonics. So another Mustang channel did a stock dyno, put down 450 wheel horsepower. Once again, the Ford guy claiming Mustang is underrated, but they did the dyno in 40-degree weather. Can you set these guys straight? I'll tell you what. Every one of those cars, or every one of any car that has ever, and I've also put this out to aftermarket manufacturers, anybody that claims that kind of number is more than welcome to hit me up. We'll roll out to Pikes Performance, put the car on the dyno, and if it can replicate those numbers, I'll be shocked. I have seen plenty of guys get their hearts broken on a Mustang dyno, and I've also seen quite a few of those cars not do as well as their YouTube counterparts would suggest that they would do. I will say this though, I don't want this to sound like a criticism against the Mustang. There was a 2018 Mustang at the drag strip last night with just a few mods. I don't know everything that the guy had done to it, but he was running 1150s at 122. And the funny thing about an 1150 at 122 is that mile an hour doesn't agree with the 11. Yeah, it was 1154, I think is what he ran. 1154 at 122. 122 is starting to get dangerously close to 10-second territory. There's about half a second worth of not enough torque to get that thing down the track happening. So I don't really care what the horsepower rating is. Either boost one of the Mustangs or run it on E85 and send it. But I would hate to think that I would have put any amount of money into a car to trap that high and not run an ET. And that's the beauty of the 392s, by the way, guys. I can't tell you how many times I have beaten heads cam, intake, throttle body, whatever, insert C6 Corvette or 2018 Mustang. That car never lost one race against that platform, save for one time. And I won that race, and I won it on the hole shot. I actually 60-footed the guy and also got him on the tree. So yeah, it's hysterical when you've got a car that runs a quarter mile time of an 1157 and the other guy runs an 1158, but he's running 6 or 7 mile an hour faster than you are. But then again, those cars aren't drag cars, right? Complete horse shit. You know how many Mustangs and Vets I see at the drag strip every single time I go? It's funny, these non-drag strip cars are always at the drag strip. Let's see. Hassan. No, so yeah, don't get it twisted, man. I love the 6.1s. What he's saying is there's some a conversation going on back and forth between the 6.1 and the 5.7 guys. The 6.1 non-MDS engine, his argument is that it's better. There's a lot of things that are better about the non-MDS 6.1 than the 5.7. Namely, it's non-MDS. I mean, so less complexity there. And yeah, it's a larger engine. It was originally rated higher. They play out fairly evenly on the street, stock for stock. Now you get into mods and anything goes at that point. But one thing I've always loved about the 6.1s, man, they're snappy engines, real torquey engines, a lot of fun to drive too. Natalie, will a torque converter help my 60-foot? And I have been 60-foot, 154, 156. Man, if you're 60-foot and 154, 156, stick with whatever converter you got. I was 60 footing, by the way. 161 and 162 on my 1077 passes at 126 mile an hour. So, short answer to that is in some cases, yes. Although there aren't a whole lot of options available in terms of torque converters right now, either for the Nag 1 or the 8-speed. And I don't like the converter options that are out there. They're a little too loose for my liking. And the stock converter will flash to 3,000 RPM. So there's that to consider. I mean, just map the throttle and you will flash that thing to 3,000 RPM. I've got data logs that show it over and over and over and over again on my car. So Hayden saying, thank you very much. Thank you for chiming in. Thank you for being a part of my show. Always learn so much from the videos. Follow-up question for 6-speed, 11-second 392. Besides bias ply, what would be my setup? Great question. I would, if it were my car, starting from the back and the bottom and moving forward, rear diff brace, set of BMR or Spawn lower trailing arms. I would run a set, I would see if you could convert it to 15-inch if possible. If not, get the shorter end lengths and get you a set of 17-inch wheels, put a set of ET Streets on the back of it, get you a 9.5-inch wheel and run a 28-10-50 rear. I would prefer to have you on a radial, but unfortunately manual transmissions prefer to be on a bias ply. So get you a skinny front with bias ply runners up front. And as far as anything else goes, work on your launch and play with tire pressure. I'd set your fronts, if they're bias ply, to about 42 PSI cold. And I would set the rears at about 16-ish and see how she bites. If she bites hard, raise your air pressure up to 18. If she still bites, probably leave it there, because you still want a little bit of wrinkle wall so that it's going to go ahead and wrap just fine. In other words, the tires can get a little bit of tire elasticity. But that would be my setup. My first launch would be at about 5,200 RPM, and I would bonsai launch that thing. Don't try to feather it out of the hole. Oh, yeah, and don't forget your drive shaft. And as long as everything holds together, you'll be in for a very fun ride. But that would be my setup if it were a manual transmission car. And that's how I would launch it. I would just 5,500 RPM, yellow, 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 yeah, and just stand on it and let her rip. Get ready to grab second. It's going to come real fast. Let's see. Super Run 357 with the Drag Pack 16 Scat. 8 automatics. Are you taking off in second and using the paddles, or just dropping it in drive and letting it eat? Baby, I'm dropping that bad boy and drive and let her do her thing. No sense in trying to rewrite the book on what works. The 8-speed automatic is on a tire now. About as good of a platform as you could possibly hope for these big cars. As much as I like the 10-speed ratios, it's just really tough to beat that 10-speed. The programming, even in stock form, is really good, and it's also there to help protect the engine, both in manual and in automatic mode. So, with one of my when I say my, I mean a Pikes Performance trans tune. But with one of our trans tunes, bump the shift up just a little bit. And there's some varying levels that you do that just based on where the shift RPM falls down to. But a little bit of a change here or there, you can pick up a couple of tenths. But if you're not really shooting for a specific number and you're just going out there and having fun and enjoying time with your friends in the car and your family, just put it in drive, pointer straight, make sure you got a tire that's going to hook, let her eat. You'll have a ball with that thing. Let's see. Hassan, real talk, bro. 6.1 modded, naturally aspirated is a hurt. I'll tell you what, man. Love them all. Love all of them. I'll tell you what. One of the most fun vehicles I've ever driven was actually it was a 1962 D100 that Who built that? God, it's escaping me right now. Damn it. I got the wrong name stuck in my head. Anyway, it was a 62 T100 that, or D100, that had the drivetrain, which was the NAG 1 and the 6.1 out of a wrecked SRT Charger, and had a bunch of custom work done to it, but the truck didn't weigh anything. And that 6.1 fit in the engine bay, and at the power level with the tune on it, I think we got, let me think about this for a minute. Through the NAG 1, I believe we got, on the Mustang Dyno, something like 365, 370 horse. It was a strong 6.1. And that thing was a freaking right. And the guy that built it basically said, get out there, have some fun with it. Yeah, put it through its paces, make sure everything's going to work right. And I took that to heart. That's one of the very few vehicles that I've ever driven that was so much fun that but it wasn't fast per se, but I guarantee you put that thing on a set of drag radials, it'd probably be about maybe a 1250 truck, but good Lord, that thing was a riot to drive. Let's see. Beat Vlad K asked a great question, by the way. Are the bearings in my supercharger good? I remember there are problems with the 2015s. That is a hit and miss issue, and that hit and miss issue almost invariably comes up extremely early on in the ownership experience. In fact, there were some guys complaining about that issue within 100 miles to 200 miles. It's rare for that issue to come up, at least from what my understanding of the situation was. It was rare for that issue to actually come up at any more than, say, about 2,500 miles. Typically, they were failing very quickly. In fact, I don't know of any that made it to 10 or 12,000 miles before they failed. 6'4" Hemi Power is out. Peace, my friend. Thank you for stopping by. Let's see. We've got a question for, man, everybody. I cannot pronounce all these names. Mr. PD Foreman. Hey, Perry Foreman, what's up, man? Love the vids. Thanks. I have the same SRT 392. I love the stock exhaust, as do I with the active exhaust. What's your opinion on just changing the muffler? I like the Borla S-type sound, but not the whole system. Man, I don't know. So exhaust sound is such a subjective thing. There's not going to be a significant performance advantage or disadvantage. It's got an X-pipe, and I've always been a firm believer that X-pipes need a flow-through muffler. So as long as it's a flow-through and not a chambered muffler, I think you'll be okay. As long as it doesn't add weight, I think you'll be good. But man, it's just it's kind of a subjective deal. The Borla sounds great. So, if that's the sound you're going for, I mean, I say go for it. I mean, there's nothing holding you back. I say rock and roll. Lasagna John, I did some weight reduction too. Told my wife to take an Uber. My wife would kick me in the nuts. To you, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you for the donation. I really do appreciate that a ton, especially considering my voice, and I'm over here, thank you so much. I appreciate you hanging out with me. To you ask my complete opinion view on that Trackhawk. How much time you got? The Trackhawk, for what it is, it's awesome. I would like to just say this about the Trackhawk experience in total. It is an amazing vehicle, all-wheel drive, 700 horsepower. What's not to love? Well, it's 5,500 pounds for one, and there's only so much power. You try to power a battleship with a Hellcat engine, it ain't going to go too fast. But I really like them a lot. They're a very consistent, in the quarter mile on average. I think most of them I've seen in good conditions are like 11.6, 11.8 trucks. but I've also seen them run in the, you know, low to mid 12s. Again, just depends on the conditions. It's tough to get one of those tanks moving because they're just so heavy. I like them. There's only one caveat here, and that's they're pricey. But with that price comes exclusivity, and they take to mods just like any other Hellcat. So if you want a real nice, very well appointed, very comfortable, big rocket ship that will handle all conditions, and by the way, it's all-wheel drive, which means it will out 60 foot and out 0 to 60 any rear-wheel drive car that's out there. They're a ton of fun. So, you know, I would never say that there's anything bad about it. I mean, it is a Hellcat engine, which has proven itself to be insanely robust over the years. You know, there have been a few cars that have rolled through the shop that have completely sold me on just how durable that platform is. So in that respect, I mean, you'd have a vehicle that, as long as you're changing oil in the thing and keeping up with all the other maintenance, probably last you a good long time. So in a nutshell, they're fantastic. I love them. If you can afford it, man, I say go for it. You'll never regret that purchase. Justin Baker, what's up, man? How you doing? Good to see you too. Thank you for checking in. Let's see. Lasagna John, Hellcat is not better than the Scat. Hellcat adds 200 pounds in the front and up top, the worst possible spot. I agree with that. Also, it doubles the number of moving parts. More to break. Well, it doesn't quite double the number of moving parts. You just got a supercharger up there and an intercooler pump. Got a loaded 18 Chally 392 shaker. Hey, listen, I've been saying that for a long time. It is tough to argue with how fun, but more importantly, how balanced the 392 car is. And again, I'll take you back to all the 0 to 60 runs that I've made with my car, my 392 car. That car would absolutely trounce my Hellcat 0 to 60 on the same tire. Now, you put them on a drag strip, and obviously it's going to be a different story. But, guys, I used to go sniping after Hellcats with my 392 car. I mean, it got to the point where I couldn't even get a race out of a Hellcat because it was going to only go my way. Now, from a roll, yeah, it's a different story. But, you know, you fight in your own backyard, you make up your own rules, right? So, yeah, trust me, I get the point completely. It's not better. It's just a different thing to do. And it's a fun, different thing to do, especially when, you know, you can take the Hellcat to the drag strip, just like you can the 392, run it indefinitely, have a ball with it, and drive the car home. They're both equally as good. But the thing is that I would caution you in terms of comparing the two, because they are a distinctly different driving experience. And as somebody who loves NA cars, you'll never hear me rooting against the 392. Like I say, I will always be the 392's biggest advocate. If nothing else, you'll know that about me. It just so happens that I came across a fantastic deal on a Hellcat that I could not possibly pass up and pull the trigger on it. I'm happy that I did. The overall driving experience of the Hellcat versus the 392, the only time you really ever notice it, and this has a lot to do with gearing, by the way, is in half throttle, fairly heavy load conditions. The Hellcat's got more torque and it'll push you back in the seat a little bit more, but a well-sorted, well-tuned 392 will do just the same thing. And it'll definitely get to 60 quicker. That's no joke. Oh, yeah, guys, don't forget to check out Demonology. Post up the name of that distributor again. Got to let these guys know about your promo code. Get 7% off the order on tires. Guys, any percent is good. And with what we're doing with these cars, we need all the percents we can get. Demonology's done a great job of working with some of these vendors to get us some promo codes. Get over to Demonology's channel. Check out some of his videos. in the links, links in the description for all the products he's got promo codes on. Use them. They're there for a reason. It's there to help out the entire community, guys. He's there for us, so be there for him. Check out his channel if you haven't already. Subscribe to it. Now, all right, we got somebody coming in from a foreign country that I can't read the hieroglyphics over here. But wherever you're coming in from, howdy from Texas. Let's see. Derek's saying that video was on a Mustang dyno. Hey, I'll tell you what, it could very well have been. We've had several of the Mustangs show up, lay down a decent number on a dyno, but it's the power under the curve where you get stung. Also check and make sure those are SAE numbers and not STD numbers, and also make sure that they were using the right correction factor. And I say that only from somebody who's been a dyno operator and knows how things can get a little bit weird. But look, what's not to believe? The cars will trap over 120 miles an hour in the quarter. They're doing something right, and that's going to come from that power to weight ratio. It's just that the torque isn't there. But damn, they're fast on the big end. You know what? That new 2018, 2019 Mustang, you know, I will not say anything bad about it. I'll be factual. I'll be subjective, at least in terms of how the car feels versus the 392 car. I'll be objective with the way that I feel in the torque production based on solid numbers. But it's just a different way to get to from point A to point B. And there's no right answer here. 392, the platform it's in is heavier. It's making a lot more torque. Goes about things a little bit differently, has a different driving experience. And I'm on record as saying this. If I could, I would have two different cars sitting in my garage. I would have a GT350 or a very well sorted out Mustang GT and my 392 car or my Hellcat. That would be the best of both worlds. You get the muscle car experience and you get the sports car experience. They're two completely different driving experiences. And when you start trying to compare the two, you're starting to compare bananas and cucumbers. You know, they got about the same shape, but they ain't the same thing at all. So, you know, just don't get confused. Gamer and Retro message retracted. Oh, come on now. Don't do that. Speak your mind, my friend. The Revolution, any 85 plug and play for the 392? No, not yet. That is something that's still, HP Tuner is still trying to crack that code the right way. There are some folks that have done it, but the ones that I've seen have... Okay, so in the tunes, there are adaptive strategies that have to play together. And you're basically taking something from here, something from there, and they've got to, different tables, and they have to be able to talk to be able to make the flex fuel system work. And that's not quite there yet. There are some companies that have kind of made it work, but over time, the adaptives, they start out in sync, so to speak, and then they just kind of get out of whack to where you'll have hot start issues, or there's just a host of little weird things. Like it'll actually, the fuel trims will quit translating properly. There's a lot of if-then statements that are floating around in there that just aren't coming together just yet. So in that case, no, but it is coming. And in fact, we will probably be using my Hellcat to finalize the development on the flex fuel for the early Hellcats with the mass air meters. And then from there, it'll be a lot easier to basically back end the newer Hellcats that don't use mass air meters on the flex fuel. And once that's done, then that will give all of the info that will be needed to make the 392 cars work, because those systems are, at least on the flex fuel side, more compatible. The mass air cars are just a little bit easier because they have a mass air meter. Let's see. Justin Baker. What do you suggest on an HP70 stall, 3600 RPM? Paramount seems like crap. Agreed. No, actually, I don't agree with that, but they're not bad. But I say that only because I don't like putting stall converters in those cars because it doesn't enhance the overall driving experience. I've got an SRT8 converter now in my Turbo Ram 5.7. So here's the thing. You want to try to bridge the gap on that between drivability and outright performance. So Southern Hot Rod's got one, I think it's 3200 RPM, that would probably work pretty well. Obviously, the higher you go in terms of stall with a turbo, the better, because you can build more boost, more quickly. I just be careful with going too aggressive with that, and also make sure that you know what the K factor is on that converter, because 3600 RPM can end up looking more like 4000 RPM based on how much torque you're making. So that's another thing to consider. Just make sure when you're looking at those converters that you remember that your vehicle is going to be making significantly more torque, and the more torque is going to create a much higher flash RPM. And based on what those typical converters, that torque rating, that K factor over yours, you'll probably see another at least 300 to 500 RPM on top of that rating that you're looking at. Jason Willis, B Mason, you need to post more content, man. Thank you very much. I agree. He says, I really love to hear your insight and thoughts. Great vids, and keep up the great work. I agree with you. I would love to be able to post more content. I've been so busy with work that I really haven't had a chance to. And quite frankly, it's a lot more fun to be able to interact with you guys directly. I've been so busy that a lot of times I don't have an opportunity to answer questions from you guys. And so, and when I do, it's a little bit later after the fact. And, I like the direct interaction of the live show, but I will be doing more videos, more content. I'm going to be posting obviously more about new Shalandra sitting in the garage. And I will be, obviously also getting into some of the new cars that are going to be coming out. My thoughts on some older videos. Got some cars that I've been thinking about putting together. One of them that a lot of Mopar guys own and daily drive are going to be some of the hot hatch cars. So I'm going to be talking about those. Again, near and dear place with me. So just some cool stuff like that is coming. I just got to sit my butt down in this chair and put them together for you, which clearly doesn't take me too long to do. Let's see. Excessive. Thank you for the shout out, man. Of course. And by the way, guys, don't forget, get over to Excessive's channel. It's X-Cessive, CESIV, on YouTube. You're going to love that new video. It is hysterical. And man, I cannot wait for us to get to meet up this January. By the way, that is going to be finalized. Waiting to hear back, but I should hear back on Monday. It'll either be the 12th or the 19th. And I will be getting all the information out on the track rental at that point. So, yep, we're going to set some more records this year. It's going to be a good time. Let's see. Natalie's talking about driving at the drag strip. By the way, 15 Scat Pack, no cats, tune, drag pack, throttle body. Yep, leave the line at 2,700 RPM. So I guess you can see I'm trying to get a tiny bit faster. I like it. Keep working on that launch. It's the most important part of the pass. Let's see. Symphonics. This is with a Corvette. Cool. I like switching up a little bit. I plan on headers, intake, X-pipe, tune, and a Nitto 305 NT05R on my LS3 Vet. Can I break into the 11s with that? Yeah, you better. I've run with that combination with a 6-speed car. Very similar combination to that. Run 1180s, Yeah, 1180s in the heat. So yeah, you can definitely do that. Oh, you're automatic? Oh yeah, you're for sure in there. Should be anyway. The automatics in those cars are typically a little bit quicker than the six speeds. And I was rowing my ass off. That was a fun car. And my old my 04 Z06. That was a heads cam car, but still that one the headers intake and X pipe setup on those cars are always a strong performer. It's an LS. They love that stuff anyway. Jason Wills, by the way, what are my thoughts on the Hellcat Redeye? Says he's deciding if he wants to go wide body or the regular one. Buddy, if you've got the option with the Redeye, if you've got the coin and if you're even thinking about going with that platform, unless you're doing a lot of drag racing with it, and this is only from a weight standpoint, but you can always put a drag specific wheel tire setup on it, get the wide body. Just get the wide body. That's if you're thinking about it and you haven't seen them in person, go check them out. And that will be enough right there to convince you. The presence of the wide body alone is worth the money. I mean, it's just such a good looking car. I can't say enough. And when they first came out, all I had to look at were pictures. I mean, they didn't have any in dealerships at that point. So yeah, get the wide body. I think you'll be a lot happier with it. Let's see. Hassan. On a serious note, I think the older 300C SRT8s outshine the newer ones any day. Older has more boss look. Do you know how long I was looking for a 6.1 SRT8 300? I had a neighbor that had a black one, and that car is look, that car is awesome. Still to this day, one of my favorite cars. Derek Sizemore. Oh, Sizemore. Must have missed it. What's my next car? The next car is it's sitting in my garage right now. It is a 2015 Redline Red Hellcat. No sunroof, no option car. It does have the Alcantara interior, but yeah, she's sweet. By the way, it went 1077 at 126, high 125s last night on a drag pack. Oh, Lasagna John, here we go. My child lives in Florida, but I live in China. Only get to drive a couple of times a year. Oh, man. Make sure you're changing the oil when you drive that thing. Don't let it sit for that long and then drive it without an oil change. You get too much condensation in the crankcase. Change that oil. Gamer and Retro, what supercharger should you recommend for a Gen 2 Coyote with a manual transmission, VMP? I wouldn't even consider another supercharger for that car. That is the one and only setup I would do to that car, and you can mod that platform, but, and this is a big one, you have got to do the oil pump gear setup on that thing. Do not do any boost, any mods to that car until you do the oil pump, the billet oil pump gear upgrade on that car. You'll thank me for that later, but it is a mandatory upgrade on the Coyotes. Once that is done, you can start out with the VMP supercharger setup with one of their tunes, make a ton of power, or buy one of theirs, take it to Pike's Performance. We can do the tune there too, but the idea is that compressor unit is amazing. So stick with that, and you get the torque, man. You get the torque that the car is lacking, and the heads will take all the boost you can throw at it up top. So that's the way I would go with it. Let's see. Toby, Toby Rama. God, I'm saying that right, man. I'm sorry if I'm screwing it up. My Dakota will be a street truck on the week and a strip truck on the weekend. So you're saying that power isn't of the issue. Also, what suspension should I use? Yeah, man, listen, if this is going to be a street and strip vehicle, don't get crazy with it, man. Just build something that's going to be a lot of fun on the street, but you want to build something that's responsive, something snappy on the street. And, at the track, if you build the right combination, you will definitely get there. Just please don't go overkill with the cam. Don't go overkill with the heads. You will learn to hate the truck. Go with the right platform early on. It'll always be fun, and I'll always go back to my tale of two Corvettes when I talk about that. And you know what? I may do a video specific to that, but it's my 93 Corvette versus my 04 Corvette. They were both sitting in the garage at the same time, and which one would I drive and why would I drive and what was the driving experience like, with one of them having basically almost 50% more horsepower, but I would still drive the one with lower power because it just had much more snappy torque. That's the car that I drove everywhere when I had a chance to. Jason Willis, thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that. Thank you for contributing to the cause, so to speak. Man, it really means a lot to me. Thank you so much. That really does truly mean a ton to me. Thank you. Guys, it really does mean a lot, by the way. It doesn't matter how much. It blows my mind when I see that come up, and it just, from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much. I hope I'm helping, if nothing else. Lasagna John says, "Oh my God, I had a '67 D100 long bed, 3 on the tree." Man, those were cool trucks. Jay Poma, what's up? Yeah, I'm live, man. What's kicking, bud? Jeffrey, what is happening, man? How you doing? Let's see. Going through some of this stuff. I don't know what y'all are talking about here. I don't know. I live under a rock though, so. Derek Sizemore, when will you premiere the new Hellcat? It's coming soon, that's for sure. Oh well, hell. She's sitting in the garage right now. Shit, let's go take a look. Oh wait, I can't turn this thing around. Can I turn this thing around? All right. There she is. And if you guys are old school, you remember that it's always sitting with the hood up. But there she is. Proof is in the pudding, stock pulley. Took the drag pack off, got the 10.5s in the back. This thing is so stuck, doesn't even have tinted windows. But there she is. I think I put a grand total of about 250 miles on her. She's only got 6,000, almost 6,100 miles if it'll focus. Focus, man, come on. But there it is. That's my new baby. All right. But she'll make her formal debut here hopefully pretty soon. So that's that. Get back over here. Since my hand is right there in the middle of everything. Hang on. All right. Let's see. Jimmy Dean, Texas about to be swarmed from the south. Invasion time. Sweet. James McEwen did an 1165 a couple of weeks ago at St. Thomas in Ontario. Trap 115.92. That's actually really good. That's with HB trains tuned, headers, drags, and B Woody trailing arms. Good trailing arms, by the way, and control arms. That's a good ET, man. You should be proud of that. That's a quick pass. It's a strong pass for that car. Quick Brick, what is happening, brother? Yep. So looking forward to hanging out with you too. As a matter of fact, be doing a little bit of work on this thing for you. Getting ready to get that bad boy installed. So, yep. Going to finish up this bad boy, do a little finishing work on it. As we say in the industry, punch work. And she'll be ready to go. So I'm looking forward to getting that on your car, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're looking forward to having you, brother. Lasagna John, Google Translator says that, oh, it was in Korean. Oh, cool. I have a pretty face. Good God, if my face is pretty, what have you been looking at? Poor thing. How can I tell if my Challenger RT has the Borla S? Crawl up underneath there and take a look at it. We'll say Borla on there. Jason says I skipped over your question. What'd you ask? Hang on. Where was it? Where's your question, Jason? I'm skipping back in here. Mr. Applin, where you at? I didn't see it. How far back was it? Post it back up. I'll answer it. I don't want to pass up anybody's question. Hang on. Well, damn, I said I want to do that, and I just blew past everybody else. Hang on. Let's see. Let me scoot back down here, man. I skipped over everybody's now. Said I didn't want to skip over everybody's. Went back looking for yours and skipped over all the questions, man. That's live TV for you, folks. All right, so. All right, getting back into it. Jay Palma, when I first found this channel, I was shocked there weren't more subs. You know, I've been a little bit surprised that I didn't have more subscribers, but I get quite a bit of views. I just don't have a lot of subscribers. And the only way I can really, I guess, justify that is I come up a lot in people's feeds and they just watch it. So, but yeah, the subs do mean a lot. Likes mean a lot from the YouTube creator standpoint. Those things really do matter. So if you haven't subscribed, please do, because it really does make a difference as far as how things work on the YouTube side. It's kind of weird. Plus, YouTube's always changing up stuff anyway and making it difficult for us to to put out some content for you guys. We're always having to mess with stuff with that. Mr. PD Foreman, any suggestions on a good traction tire? It says he took off the drag radials due to cooler, rainy weather. Put the MT Street comps, and they have worse traction than the stock Pirellis. Yeah, for sure. So what I like and what I always suggest, and of course, this is just personal opinion. They're not paying me to say this. It'd be great if they were. But the Nitto Tri-5R, I've had great results with that tire in all conditions, really. I've never been in a situation where they were bad. It's provided you're not, driving it like you stole it in the rain, they'll be fine. Any of the Pirelli summer tires are actually typically pretty good. The all seasons are garbage, though, for traction. So the Pirelli summer tire is good. The Nitto Tri-5R is a decent tire. Just be a little bit more careful with it in the rain. But any other performance, more performance-minded tires, I wouldn't mess with it too much. They just have a tendency to have too shallow of a water channel, and they'll have a tendency to be a little bit skatey. So just watch out for that. EP Plum Crazy Hellcat, what's up, my brother? Asked, what do you think about people having cars turned up at 7,000 RPM? Asking if that's too much, Hellcats, Corvettes, etc. These modern engines, you can turn to $7 grand, not really a problem. I would prefer to see the stand key tie bars and collars on any car that's being turned past about 6,500 RPM, 6,600 RPM. I had them on my 392 basically because it was a mule and it was always on the drag strip, always on a dyno. And there were plenty of times where that car was buzzed to 65, 66, 6,700 RPM just as a safety thing. But I don't really see there being too much of a problem. The LS platform will definitely take it. The only downside to spinning a Hemi that high, if it's naturally aspirated, the intake manifold won't support it. And if it's supercharged, it's okay. I mean, you can spin there's plenty of guys spinning Hellcat 772, although I don't really recommend it. Because you can make plenty of power. Plus, the higher you're spinning, especially a PD blower, the higher your RPM, your parasitic loss is going up exponentially. So you're just going to get to a spot where you're not going to be making enough power to justify spinning the blower that hard at that RPM. You want to spin that blower that hard at a lower RPM where you can actually make some boost with it. So hopefully that answers the question. It doesn't screw it up too much. Hondo, show us HCAT. Just did. I don't know how far behind these comments are too. So, AZ Independent, I was thinking about doing a blower on my Challenger SRT8 and been looking at the Arrington. What is your opinion on supercharged Mr. Mopar Wizard? Man, I got to tell you something. If you're thinking about putting a blower on, let's see something real quick. On your SRT8, you don't say what year it is. Take a look at the Whipple and take a look at the Edelbrock E-Force. I know that those are some less popular options, but I will argue that they are a solid option that will make good power, and you don't run into a situation where you're overboosting the car. You get instant torque. And I like them because the air inlet is cleaner than a Pro Charger, and you can actually feel the power down low, which for me is a lot more fun. It basically makes the car feel like it's got another 150 cubic inches. Santos asks, do I think a 2010 Charger RT would be a good first car? I really like how they look, and I want to be able to learn more about being a mechanic with my first car. Well, you get a Mopar, you'll learn a lot about being a mechanic for sure. But no, they're great cars. In fact, some of the earlier Hemis, I mean, there's plenty of them running around with 250,000 miles on them. Just keep up with maintenance. Learn how to do general stuff first. Change your oil. Do not over tighten anything. By the way, learn proper torquing procedures, read torque specs, but aside from that, no, it's a great platform to learn. It's a little bit more challenging than an LS, but if you can turn wrenches on a Hemi, you'll be significantly more ahead of the game in terms of being proficient. And I think it's a bit more of a rewarding engine in that it's a Mopar, it's a Hemi. So how can it possibly go bad? But no, I think you'll have a good time with that car, and just check them thoroughly before you buy them. Make sure, I got to plug this thing in before it keels over. Bear with me, guys. Hang on just a second. That's it. Okay, so, but yeah, just make sure when you put something together like that, when you're putting together the purchase, when you're putting together the plan, have a concise plan, have a reason to do what it is that you're doing. Don't just put mods on the car because you can. I've done a ton of testing, and I can tell you that there are very few mods that are actually worth the time. In other words, the juice sometimes isn't worth the squeeze, but it's definitely a fun car to play with and learn. So yeah, absolutely, grab one. Let's see. William Harmon, when buying a used Hellcat Challenger, what's the most mileage that should be considered? He says he doesn't want to get one that's been trashed. Well, mileage has nothing to do with how the car has been used. There's plenty of guys that have bought Hellcats and have babied them, but they have driven them. And to be honest with you, a lot of the guys that have bought Hellcats fall into the same category as guys that have bought GT500s, that bought Lightnings, that bought, you know, any of the supercharged platform vehicles from not too long ago. And most of those guys really don't beat the hell out of them. They'll drive them in spurts aggressively. They might go, you know, manual mode, go watt. They'll feel the rev limiter nose over. They'll grab a gear or something like that. They're not hurting anything. And that's few and far between, even with a lot of those drivers. What's the most mileage I would like to see? I would be more interested in if you're buying it from an individual, get to know the individual. That's really the most important part. If you're buying it from a dealership, scrutinize that Carfax, give it a real good once over, look for anything that could be a little bit abnormal in terms of being away from stock. Check the inner fenders, make sure that it doesn't have a bunch of rubber caked up underneath it, and give it that, fine tooth comb treatment. But if the question is solely based on mileage, I don't know. If you're looking at a 15, I would say maybe 30 to 40,000 miles. Somebody that was just driving it around, but was significantly driving it on the weekends, and then just kind of tear down the mileage from there as the years go up. But as long as it's been maintained, a Hellcat is an unbelievably durable platform, and I doubt you would have any problems with it if the car has been maintained properly. And if the guy, greets you at the door, he's wearing a Mopar shirt and he's holding a Coors Light, he's probably the guy you want to buy the car from. So, let's see. And if he's drinking a Stella, then yeah, you're absolutely in, like Flynn. To you saying, "Oh yeah, buddy." Yeah, she is sexy. Thank you all very much. I appreciate the kind words from the new girl. Let's see. That Hellcat is a beauty. Thank you, Track Pack. This says A Ford Venom kills what? Redeye? I hear that, and all I can think of is the conjunctivitis episode of South Park. That's what Redeye is. Why would you name your car after a freaking disease, man? God damn. Let's see. Jay Puma, congrats on the new ride. Isn't that crazy though? Yeah, that girl, she had never been driven at all. Was maintained at the same dealership every single oil change, and every single oil change was at 1,500 miles or 1,700 miles. So basically once a year. And the tech that did the oil changes, I don't know if it was the same guy every time or what, but something pissed him off, because I just personally did an oil change on the car and it ran into some problems with people over torquing everything underneath that car. Steven Russo asked, good question. What's a fair price for a 15 Hellcat? Depends on mileage and it depends on condition. If you found one that was ultra clean with super low mileage, a fair price, one like mine, they would probably be asking, a private seller would probably try to get about 55 grand for it, and probably get a private seller down to 50. If it's got more mileage than that, start pulling off money for mileage modifications, pull money away from that. But realistically, for a 15 with normal mileage, say averaging anywhere between 5,000 and 8,000 miles per year for a car like that, I would say you're looking at 45-ish, give or take. The Hellcats kind of have they do have a high bottom. Even ones with high mileage really won't go below that $40,000 mile or $40,000 mark. I'll put it to you like this: I wouldn't pay less than $40,000 for one, because if you're trying to get one on the cheap, there's a reason why it's going that cheap. That's a buyer beware. You get what you pay for, checks and balances type thing. So there's another way to answer that is buy the best example of whatever car it is that you're looking for, and be aware of what the market value is for that vehicle at that price point. So if you're looking for a low mileage, know that you're going to be spending significantly more. If you don't care and you just want a Hellcat to mod, make sure that you're on the lookout. And if you're looking for one that's already modded, do your research, call the shop that did the build and ask them the questions too. They can give you some insight to that car that maybe, well, it can be eye-opening in either a good way, or they might say, dude, you don't buy that car. It's bad. So, they can always steer you in the right direction. I've actually done that for guys. Let's see. Toby Rama says, a crate 5.9 Magnum has 465 horsepower and 535 torque. Is that good or too high for 91 Dakota? No, that's fine. That is going to be gross horsepower though, and probably an older and by an older criteria, the standard correction model. So realistically, I would consider that 465 to be more like 4.25, and I would say that the 500 foot-pound of torque range would be more in line with an SAE rating on that. So, keep that in the back of your mind. But no, that'd be actually a really fun engine for that truck. Derek, keep up the great videos, man. Thank you very much. Let's see. TU at Steven Russo, low mile used under 20,000, 50 to 47. Yeah, again, I'll agree with that. And again, mine, I got a smoking deal on mine. I don't want to give up too many numbers, but it was on the lower side of that 50 to 47K mark, and I just could not pass it up. The mileage, super clean Carfax, had every bit of documentation to go along with it. As a matter of fact, where'd I put that stuff? I actually have something kind of cool for that car. Where the hell did I put it? Hang on. I have the original floating around here somewhere. Anyway, I've got the original line sheet that came with that car somewhere. Now it's making me a liar. Where the hell did I put that thing? Must have set it down somewhere. Anyway, I'm losing my mind, y'all. Anyway, my car, by the way, just so you know, it was born Thursday, November 20th, 2014 at, I believe it was a little after 4:30 in the afternoon. Let's see. Let me check some of this stuff out here real quick. AZ Independent, nice Hellcat. I'm sure that you will enjoy it. You better believe I already have. I'm already having a ball with that car. He's asking if I've heard or seen of anyone using a Hellcat supercharger on a 5.7 or a 6.1 or a 6.4. And is anybody making adapter plates for it? I don't know that anybody is making any adapters or any, swap setups. If there are, I'm not aware of it, but there are less expensive options and easier ways to get there than the Hellcat superchargers. That would be an expensive proposition, especially if you're, mixing in all the same OE style cooling mods and things like that. So, David White says that he noticed that I mentioned the Pirelli P0 Nero all-season tires. He put him on his 2008 Challenger SRT8 recently, but your recent comment makes me worried about how they'll handle in the winter. I'm concerned. Oh man, don't be concerned about it. We were just talking about the performance, how they hook up in spirited or performance driving situations. They're actually a very good tire in cold weather and in snow. So yeah, don't let that spook you. It's actually a really good tire. We're just talking about more performance oriented situations, not normal driving or inclement weather driving. They're actually good in that respect. Let's see. Super Run 357 recommendations for a place to ship stock 16 Scat Pack Challenger intake for polishing. Well, it'd be porting. You don't want to polish it. and stock throttle body for porting. Yeah, absolutely. So MMX does a good job with the intakes. I would highly suggest that you ship them your intake, put your name on the intake with a Sharpie and tell them to port your intake. I'll spare you the details about issues with the short runner valve actuator motor, but suffice it to say that in some cases that's a real thing. And that's just with a range situation. I think that has more to do with the operating system than anything else on some 392s. And keep in mind, every Mopar operating system is a snowflake in that they're all a little bit different. My car, from a car just down the line, the assembly line can be lower or higher on certain values. So anyway, getting back to it, MMX does really well, but peak speed is probably the one that I would suggest. And as far as throttle bodies go, Fastman would be the first throttle body that I would suggest that you put on your vehicle. In fact, quick break. Fastman throttle body, give you guys an idea. And again, I'm not getting paid for this. I just want to give props for companies that do a damn fine job. This is what the inside of that Fastman looks like. If you'll notice, it is a through-ported throttle body. It goes all the way through. I had great results with this throttle body on my car, especially in terms of throttle response. This is a great piece. Highly recommend it. Can't remember the guy's name, but tell him B. Mason sent you. He won't know what you're talking about, but if he hears enough guys saying it, he'll figure it out quick. So, but I do highly recommend his work. He does a really good job. So that's the direction I would go. Let's see. Derek Sizemore asks, why do you think all OEMs use PD blowers? Those are positive displacement superchargers versus centrifugals. The reason for it is that you can feel a positive displacement supercharger all the time. You can't with any type of centrifugal supercharger. Centrifugal supercharger is kind of a middle of the road thing when it comes to efficiency. And what I mean by that is this: a PD blower will get you off the line immediately. A turbocharger, there may be some lag, but the turbo will always be the most efficient form of generating positive intake manifold pressure. So you can tune the actual vehicle around a turbo and have a longer intake runner. You can spool the turbo up faster or have a larger turbo that's going to spool up later but deliver more power. It's one of the reasons why every diesel that you see, for the most part, runs a turbo. It's just more efficient. And all the gas engines run the PD, so you can feel the initial horsepower and torque hit down low. Centrifugal supercharger doesn't do anything for you down low to speak of, and up top, they're just less efficient than a turbo. So not to say there's anything wrong with them or that there's anything bad about it. You can certainly make a ton of power with them, but smart money is either on a turbo or a PD supercharger. Let's see. Jazzed Hellcat. What's up, man? Talking about went 1086 at 128, the stock Hellcat with drag tire and wheel setup. Beautiful. I went 1077 at 126. So we're right there in the mix, my brother. That weight difference is the only thing explaining the difference in ET, man. I'm glad to see that. That's really good, good mile an hour. What was the DA when you ran that? Mine was, I want to say it was like 3 to 400 feet. Call it 350 just for calling it good. But congrats on that, man. I'm glad to hear it. That's a strong running Hellcat. Jay Palma, any thoughts on a good 275 all-season tire up here in Michigan? He says he's had a Charger and a 300S, so you know how to drive a rear-wheel drive all year. Yeah, you drive it sideways. I like the Pirellis. I haven't had or seen or heard of any issues with them, and they're fairly readily available. You can always give the Aturos a shot if you just want to have a set that's sitting on your own set of wheels in the garage for, inclement weather or for snow days. They're an inexpensive tire. They seem to do fairly well, but as far as all seasons go, the Pirelli's pretty strong in that respect, at least so far as I've heard. I don't get a whole lot of snow out here, so, but that's been my experience anyway with guys that I've talked to up north. Jazz Hellcat, I bought a Hellcat. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. She is a Redline Red 2015 zero option Hellcat. It was the exact car I was looking for, and it just happened to pop up. So, yep, she's all mine now. So I'm looking forward to it. Let's see. Boosted Motorsports. Hello, 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 hello. I like the sign language there. It means I love you. But he didn't know he didn't love me. So anyway, I hope he says he loves my channel. Let's see. Jazz Hellcat, what I did the SRT? SRT is gone. SRT got put back to stock and is gone. And I am hoping that the new owner enjoys it. And but they're getting that car back all stock. Let's see. Toriyama, for my Dakota, should I go stick or auto? Auto all day. Let's see. See if we got. You guys were at 1,000 feet. Jazz Hellcat saying he was about 1,000 feet for the density altitude. I'll tell you what, I do need to work a little bit on my launch technique. I'm still launching it a little bit like a sissy, only because it's my car. I do have a track rental coming up, and I will be seeing if I can put that thing in the 50s. It's pretty light, so I'm kind of hoping I can get a high 50 out of it. I don't have any clue, by the way. I don't keep up with a lot of this stuff. I don't know if there's a record for stock blower, still catalytic converter, all that Hellcat, but I don't know. I'm just going to try to get a 50 out of it and just have some fun with that car. It's a lot of fun the way it sits, and I'm really not trying to set any records with this car, but if I can set a record on all stock driveline with catalytic converters, just get the weight out of it on a tire, I'll take it. But yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun, and I am enjoying the experience. The funny thing about owning a Hellcat now over the SRT, I have to admit, is you got to remember, guys, I'm coming into this a little bit jaded. I've driven some of the fastest Hellcats in the country. I've driven the Demon. I've driven the Demon with pulleys on race gas, with meth injection. I got the privilege of being the guy that drove that car for the owner to get the ETs out of it for him. I've had the opportunity to drive really, really, really fast cars, and I would always get in my SRT, my 392 car, and it never felt slow by comparison. Only in that I wasn't expecting anything out of it. With my Hellcat, it's a little bit different story because every Hellcat that I've driven has been modded for the most part. And so I get into mine and it's, man, this thing's a lot of fun to drive. It's real lively, and I don't know. I can't say enough good things about it. And again, the driving experience isn't that far removed from a 392 until you really start tipping into the throttle. That's when you notice the torque hit, and that's when you realize that, now there's something a little bit different going on here than with that 392. But yeah, no, I'm having a riot with that car. So thank you guys very much for the congratulations. It means a lot to me. Thanks a ton. Boosted Motorsports. Haha, yes, sir. Thank you for the kind words. Let's see. Finally got the 14 Ram crew cab in the 12s. No kidding. Hold on. 3300 DA. No, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen the video yet. I need to check that out. Sorry, guys. Again, I've been living under a rock, so especially with the new gig. But yeah, no, congrats. I got to check that out. Got that thing in the 12s and that DA. We need to get that thing down into Houston, man. That's an 11-second truck. Let's see, Swamp. Should I get asked a question? Should I get 429 gears in my 12 RT? Congrats on the Hellcat. No, do not put a gear that steep in that car. You can go as aggressive as 392. You know, just get the gear out of a 6-speed car, run that. But I guess for that year, the Gaytrag would be a 390 gear. But still, I mean, I would go with that gear. Don't put 429s in that car. You will regret it. If you do any highway driving at all, yeah, you'll instantly realize that that was a big mistake. So, yeah, take my word for that. Let's see. Canada guy just got in. What is happening? Hey, brother, what is happening? How's the weather up there, guys? I know that it gets a little chilly up there. But no, I always have a good time with my Canadian friends. So thank you for chiming in. Let's see. Justin's asking, Justin's from Justin Baker, when putting 50-50 meth into the intake, how much percent would you take out? I'm guessing by percent. Which percent are you talking about? Are you talking about in terms of timing? How much timing would I add? I mean, I don't understand the question. Let's see. When putting 50-50 meth into the intake, how much percentage would you? I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, it's just a simple, deal where you're plumbing it. I don't know if you're like where to plumb it in. I definitely plumb it in after, if possible, just right before the throttle body. Don't feed it in before the turbo. But yeah, fuel. Asking how much percentage of fuel would I take out? It depends on the jet size that you're going to be running on that thing. Here's the thing when it comes to meth. I try to use a small jet, don't take any fuel out, and use a small jet only to cool the charge. Don't rely on that meth, and don't rely on removing fuel from the tune thinking that you're going to make up for it with the meth kit. Think of it like this. If for some reason that meth kit fails and you don't have enough fuel, your investment will be no more. You have a very good opportunity for blowing stuff up. I'll give you a great example of this. Had a guy with an LS3 with a Magnuson supercharger in a Jeep Wrangler, the Texas Truck Works Jeep. They do a lot of the Hemi conversions. They do the Hellcat Jeeps, the 6.4 Jeeps, 5.7 Jeeps. Anyway, this is one of their LS swap Jeeps. And I did the initial data log on this vehicle. I had one of the techs with me, and we were watching fuel pressure. And that thing dropped fuel pressure, and they were basically running the meth to make up for the fact that it just didn't have enough fuel in the initial tune, and mechanically there just wasn't enough fuel. I was shocked that thing even was holding together. They were literally relying on meth to keep that engine alive. And I immediately phoned the shop owner and said, there's no way, we can't tune this thing in this state. If that meth kit fails, it blows up. And it was literally, I was doing high load. I was doing high load testing from 2,500 RPM to 5,500 RPM. I got out of it at 5,000 RPM and refused to do any more power pulls with it until that was rectified. So it's a safety issue for me. It's a long-term durability issue for me. And just take that for what it's worth, man. I know that that's me being a nanny and, but still, I can't help it. I don't want you to hurt your truck. Canada guy asks, looking to buy a 6-speed RT in the spring and first power mods I would recommend, if any. Yeah, I mean, I would recommend, hang on, let me look at something real quick. You're not saying what year, so I'm guessing a newer model. If you're saying it's a newer model, I would definitely, with either 5.7 or 6.4, go with the Hellcat airbox, Hellcat filter, Fastman throttle body. I'm a big fan of that product. Again, he's not paying me Wish he was. He needs to get on my channel, by the way. Anyway, Fastman throttle body ported intake would be the first place I would start. Obviously, tuning would help in terms of building power, but let's get some supporting mods on there, and the car will do fine. You don't need a tune for those. They're speed density, so they'll definitely learn around it. But you do at some point, or will at least at some point, want to put a tune on it. Derek Sizemore asks, "Are the Bogart wheels only made for the Dodge?" No, they make wheels for a little bit of everything. They're a pretty big company, as a matter of fact. Let's see. Canada guy, long tube headers with a tune for them. Just put them on my 09 RT. Night and day difference. Okay, so one of the things you'll notice with the 5.7, if you're talking about an RT, I'm assuming you got a 5.7. Those exhaust manifolds that come with that car are garbage. It's true for any 5.7 vehicle, trucks and cars. I would highly suggest any kind of aftermarket header. It doesn't matter what it is, it's going to be a big improvement. So, yeah, for sure, if you got a 5.7, please put a different exhaust manifold setup. BBK makes a good set of shorties. Cooks makes a great set of long tubes for that car. So either way would be a good deal. Let's see. Toby Rama says his Dakota will be plumb crazy with a 70s TA hood. I like it. Should be a good looking car or truck. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate that. Let's see. Jay, thanks so much. What year was the 392? It was a 2016. Let's see. Was I looking for a specific year Hellcat, or did the stars just align? Actually, I was looking for a 2015, mainly due to price point. It's just basically what I could afford based on the equity that I had in my car. And it just so happened that really the stars did align. I got literally the exact car that I wanted. In fact, it is the exact Hellcat that I would have ordered for myself. That's how this car is in terms of, where does it fall in line with, well, would I have done something different if I bought it myself? Absolutely not. It is literally the car I would have ordered for myself. Nose to tail, no different. Couldn't believe it when I found it. Let's see. Smokin05 asked, would I recommend porting the 392 intake manifold himself or sending it out? I have experience with porting turbine housings and WG ports. It's mostly cleaning up, flashing, or actual changing runner shape. You will have to reshape the throat. And if you've got porting experience, you will be fine porting your own intake manifold, provided that you stick by the golden rule of do not misshape, do not reshape, only clean up for the runners. But you will notice straight away, once you start feeling around in there, where you will need to cut material on the runners to create a smoother transition, especially on the long side radius. Now, on the throat, the transition is easier to manage on the low side, on the short side. On the throat, you'll notice where that thing kind of jogs down, kind of makes that S shape. So I'm going to use the bottom and call that the short side, even though that's not accurate. We're just going to use the top, and I'll call that the long side. The long side radius, you're going to have to spend quite a bit of time to reshape that a little bit, to give it a bit of a bell on the backside, and to open up the inside to where you have a consistent, because it's it's a kind of an oblong, goofy looking shape. You're going to need to absolutely do some work with there. Work on the inside short side radius. Make sure that, and take a look and verify on core shift. These intake manifolds, all of them suffer from some level of core shift one way or another. They can be front, back, side to side, or they can be actual left, right core shift. So once you get the intake manifold off, you'll be able to determine core shift and then begin your porting from there. Again, if you have experience with it, you'll take to it like a duck to water. Just again, don't be too aggressive with it, but also don't be afraid to open the thing up on the backside. That's where you're going to find all your gains. I can promise you that. Canada guy has stock 6.1 headers on a 5.7 be good. They'd be awesome. Let's see. David White started asking a similar question. He says he's starting to get used to the power of the 6.1. So what power mods would I recommend to start on his 2008 Challenger SRT8? Also, what's my preferred exhaust? Man, you know, as far as that car goes, preferred mods, obviously a tune, larger throttle body. The 6.1s can benefit, those intakes can benefit from porting. If you've got the time and the money, extrude honing might be a good method as well. From there, it just depends on really what you want to do with the vehicle. If you want to get more aggressive, obviously a camshaft, ported cylinder heads, better springs, better valve seats, all of that can come into play as well. So it depends on your budget and how far you want to take it. But to start, larger throttle body, get you a tune on the car, especially for throttle response. I think you'll be in good shape. It'll make the car feel completely different too, which is kind of the whole point, you know. Justin Baker asks, what's my opinion on how much boost this bottom end can take? He's talking about his bottom end. You know, again, I like to stick to the golden rule with the Hemis, man. You know, 13, 12. You know, you're going to want to, especially on a turbo setup, you don't need that much boost to make really good power. So, you know, somewhere, high side 12, that way, you know, good low DA weather, you know, you spike it to 14, you'll probably be okay. If you really want to be super safe, I would say 10 and just let it ride at 10. You'll win a lot more than you'll lose it at that boost level as well. Canada guy, thanks for coming by, man. I appreciate it. Let's see. Eric Sizemore is saying his 2018 Whippled Mustang made 744, 560 on a Dyno jet and 750 and 610 on a Mustang Dyno, both at 7,400. Yeah, I mean, it just depends on what dyno jet you're on. There's so many determining factors, and that's why, you know, when you start getting into dyno numbers, everybody wants to know how much power their car is making, but the problem is that it depends on, you know, is the weather station set up correctly? Is the correction factor accurate? I've seen some dyno jets and Mustang dynos that were close. I've seen some Mustang and dyno jet numbers that were way off. So any load bearing dyno, though, is going to be fairly close. Dyno jet, you know, I can see where the Mustang may have shown a little bit more torque, but again, it just depends on how it was set up, what gear it was being run in on the dyno jet versus on the Mustang as well. All that plays into effect, how much weight it was being loaded at. But, you know, in general, you'll see about a roughly a 10% difference between Mustang and dyno jet, at least the old 248C inertia style. But, you know, like I say, it all depends on, you know, on one dyno to the next. Derek asked, which do I think was more correct number? Both were SAE. I mean, they're both within the noise. I would tend to be a little bit skeptical of a dyno jet number that would show that torque and a horsepower number as similar to the Mustang dyno as it was. I will always err on the side of caution and say that the Mustang dyno is the accurate number, but when you're showing horsepower numbers that are that close, but torque numbers that are off by that much, you got to remember that horsepower is derived from the torque number at the RPM. So obviously there's a mathematical formula, but pretty simple one at that. But the reality is that if they're that far off, I know Mustang dynos are inherently very accurate, so I would I would hang my hat on the Mustang dyno numbers for sure. David White says he went with the SLP loudmouths on his 2010 Challenger and he loves them. Yeah, and they're lightweight too. Good point. Those are good. Let's see. Zach Stevenson asks, how sensitive are the demons when it comes to leaded fuel? Would I guess he's asking, would it foul the O2s? Would the cats work, etc. with more changes? I tell you what, I would never suggest running leaded fuel with catalytic converters. You can foul them. But more to the point, I don't like running leaded fuel through the stock fuel injectors. And I'll tell you something, I have a set of Hellcat injectors that had a significant amount of leaded fuel run through them. When they were sent to be flow checked and balanced, they were about 5% off from the lowest to the highest, which isn't too bad if you're considering it as a mass-produced item, but they were showing signs of being dirty, and those injectors really can't be rebuilt. So I just, for the sake of the car and for the sake of the O2s, wouldn't really run too much leaded fuel. That being said, you can run quite a bit of leaded fuel through there before you're going to run into a problem. So Derek's saying both SAE with the same correction and whether both are running 7th gear. Damn. Oh, yeah, it's a 10-speed. Sorry. Yeah, that would have been a long dyno pull on a Mustang dyno, especially if it was loaded properly. But, yeah, no, I mean, I don't doubt it. You know, those cars make great power. So, I would say, again, just stick with the Mustang dyno numbers. I mean, you know that's going to be fair. And if nothing else, get the thing to a drag strip on a sticky tire. See what it mile an hour. I mean, that will give you the best indication. I mean, that's the ultimate dyno, is to run it at the drag strip. Scat426 asks, have I seen many broken valve springs or bent valves on Hemi engines? No, I haven't. However, I have seen a lot of popped ringlands on 392s and melted pistons on Hellcats that were tuned by shops that didn't know what they were doing with a Hellcat or with a 392 for that matter. So the valve springs are actually pretty robust. You got to remember, they're having to deal with a camshaft with pretty bizarre low profile characteristics, in that they have a 577 lift, but they've got 218 degrees duration. So it's a very aggressive load profile on the intake, a little bit less aggressive on the exhaust. Still a symmetrical load profile, but aggressive nonetheless. So no, I haven't seen too many issues there. The only time I see issues with push rods is if for some reason the vehicle was over revved, but you've really got to over rev them. You've got to spool them up to about 7,000 to 7,200. 7,000 is your danger zone. 6,800 RPM. 67 is actually your safe limit. You just got this big valve moving around in there, so just remember that. That's what can sting you. It'll get in the valve float before anything else, and that can bend and break everything. I would be more concerned about broken lifters than I would be about broken valve springs or push rods, unless it's a Hellcat, and then it would be a broken or a bent valve. A bent push rod. Let's see, what rear end should I go with between the Chrysler 8.8 and Ford 9? Oh, dude, Ford 9-inch every time. Ford 9-inch every time, because you could show up to the track with 3 or 4 different center sections and basically change your gearing with whatever amount of time that it took you to break out the tools and get the thing on ramps. Let's see. Derek Sizemore saying he's taking this to the track soon to stock drive shaft. Yeah, check out your half shafts too, by the way, while you're at it. Let's see. Eric, I believe was the name. what gearing should I use for his? Should he use for his truck? Again, you know, you're gonna be using that thing for mixed use, so 373s, 410s would be the max I would go with, but 373s, if depending on what transmission you're with. But yeah, that'll put you where you need to be. Derek Sizemore, yeah, got it tuned by Lund. Lund's strong, man. Lund does a great job with those Fords. William Harmon, do I think Dodge will ever make a Hellcat or 426 Hemi crate motor for a 2009 Challenger or later models? Actually, I think they have one. I think there's a 426 Gen 1, or at least they used it in the original drag pack cars. I mean, you can always put a 392 stroker or, you know, put a 426 stroker in a 6.1. That's actually very readily available in the aftermarket. I keep scooting closer to this thing. It looks like I'm trying to make out with my camera here. You can always go that route. I mean, you go aftermarket anyway. Go Molnar rods and pistons. Get you a really good machine shop to put that thing together. Get the bearings clearance set up and all that. You'll be good to go. That's the way I would go. Don't wait on Dodge for anything like that, because it won't be. It'll be a long time before we get to that. So let's see. All right, guys. Well, I'll tell you all what. Thank you all for very, very much for hanging out. We've been going on for 2 hours and 36 minutes. I'm about to have to call it a night, but I want to say thank you very much to everybody that decided to hang out with me, and thank you very, very much for you guys that contributed to the cause. I very much appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. It means a ton to me that you guys think enough about my channel to do that. And again, thank y'all so very much. Anybody else has any more questions, post them up. But other than that, that is going to be a wrap. Let's see. Oh, wait, we got a couple more questions here. Hang on. Zephyr R&D is asking, have I had any experience with a 6.1 426 stroker? And do I think that a built-blown stroker would give a stock Hellcat a hard time? Well, that's a two-part question, Zephyr. And I'll tell you this. Yes, I have had experience with the 6.1 426s. They do fine. They do... Actually, that is the one area where the 6.1 does well, is with the stroker kit, with the Edelbrock intake, provided you've cleaned up that Edelbrock intake. They do come a little bit rough from the factory. A little bit of work on that intake, you'll be in good shape. Put a decent cam on it, you'll be fine. As far as will it give a stock Hellcat a hard time? From a dig, it will, depending on what kind of tire you're on, just because the Hellcat's going to have a harder time hooking up. But from a roll or at the drag strip, it would be close until maybe the 330 mark. And that's where the Hellcat, the torque of that Hellcat and that 8-speed automatic is going to really start coming into its own. And that's when it really starts stinging folks, is at that area. So Derek says, thank you for keeping me entertained, sped up my guard shift. I'm glad I can help out. Anything I can do, my friend. Thank you for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. Justin Baker saying loves his 410s in the 8-speed. Yeah, in the 8-speed on a truck. Yeah, I loved my 392 gears. Those were awesome. Great. You know, it's really the way they should come, honestly, and especially for the trucks. What does that say? Justin Baker saying, gear the hell out of the 8-speeds. They love it. Yeah, they do, especially if you got a truck. You got big tires, or, you know, the larger wheel and tire setups, they do. The only time that I've run into problems with gearing with the 8-speeds is with the Hellcats on the higher horsepower. They take a little bit more finesse with the transmission tuning. And for the 392 cars, it just seems to be a little bit too much down low. They start running into Hellcat problems with traction down low. But you guys know this. What's my favorite combination for 5.7 cars? 370 gear, man. I mean, dude, you put a 370 gear in there with a 5.7 and that car becomes a freaking riot to drive. And I don't care what it runs in the quarter mile. It is just so much fun. So, yeah, that's that for me is one of the most fun combinations to drive around in. Vince, thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's kind of hard for me to read that. Let's see. Well, I'm just going to call you Vince. Thank you very much for the donation. I appreciate it. He's asking, hey, B Mason, got here late. Any drag uploads from your SRT anytime soon? No, sir. There will not be any drag updates on the SRT anytime soon. The SRT is now gone, and in its place is a Hellcat. So I will be doing some initial runs with the Hellcat. I'll be showing you guys around that car soon. But I'm still here and still, obviously, I'm the world's biggest advocate for the 392 and the NA guys. But the way things worked out and the way things came about, I ran into a situation that I just could not say no to. And quite frankly, wasn't in a position to say no to if my wife had anything to say about it. So the 392 is now with its new owner, and I have a Redline Red 2015 Hellcat, the exact car that I would have ordered had I had the ability to back in 2015. Let's see. Scat 426, thanks for answering all our questions. I try to, guys. I really do. And I enjoy visiting with you guys, too. It's a lot of fun for me. So, the more I can, the more I will, try to do some of these live shows. They're a lot more fun for me to directly interact with you guys. I'm still going to be doing the My Thoughts videos and, updates on the car and some of the other stuff I've been doing. But, man, this is so much fun for me to hang out with you guys in the lounge. So thank you very much for being a part of it. Let's see. But let's see what else is going on. That's really it on my end, guys. Yeah, Vince is saying, wow, I didn't know. That's awesome. I'll tell you what, I'm really looking forward to it too. I've been having a lot of fun with that car already, and I've already put a few hundred miles on it and itching to put some more on there. Definitely want some more seat time and track time as well. Let's see. Yeah, Jay, 2015 with just over 6,000 and picked it up with 5,700 on there. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got 7. Already got 8 passes at the drag strip with it. Let's see. AZ Independent, would a larger throttle body increase performance on a 6.1, or it wouldn't be that noticeable by itself? The one area where a larger throttle body will help you is with throttle response. So you may not notice anything different at like a dyno meet or something like that. If you actually strap the thing down, I don't know that you'll see much of a difference there, but where you will see a difference or notice a difference is just in throttle response. And to be honest with you, sometimes that's worth it just for the throttle response alone. And at the drag strip, it might help you out just by, letting you get into the power a little bit earlier. But, yeah, you'll notice a little bit of a difference. Just don't go overkill. Always recommend maxing it out about 84 to 86. 87 is a good size too, but you just want to make sure it's going to be a good match for the opening on that intake manifold. And 84 seems to be kind of the magic number for those cars. Let's see, Della Randon, how's the Ram? Which one? I've got a Ram as a work truck, and the original work truck is gone. That one had 125,000, 130,000 miles on it, and it was time to let that one go too, just because, yeah, it was getting a little bit long in the tooth, and I've got another work truck, so I'm going to drive that thing into the dirt and see how long that one will last. Let's see. Toby Rama, Eric, what kind of tires should I use for the Dakota? I'm going to have a set of tires for the, I guess for the separate street, and one for the strip, I guess is what you're driving at. I would always run a 17-inch or a 15-inch wheel, whatever will fit, the smallest. Run the Mickey Thompson ET Street R on the back of it. It's a real stable tire, and it will dead hook for you. And for the street, go the set of Nitto Tri-5s, man. I can't say enough good things about that tire. Is it as good on the racetrack as a set of Mickey Thompson SSs, the ET Street SS? If it's not as good, it's just about as good. And to be honest with you, if you're going to be driving it on the street a lot, you're making that much power, I would probably suggest having a drag radial on it just to be on the safe side. If you're not going to run a drag radial, at least throw a set of Tri-5s on the back of it. You'll just have as much fun with it. So, but guys, that is it for me. I've got to call it. But at any rate, I just want to say thank y'all again so very much. Means a ton to me that you guys were hanging out with me and had a blast visiting with you guys. Hope to see you soon. Be on the lookout for some new videos on the way. And that's a wrap for this one. Y'all have a great one. Adios.